Griffin and David.
Jonathan Braylock. James III. Rob Milligan.
Don't know what to say or to expect.
What more can I say?
All you need to know is that the name of the show is Black Men Can't Jump.
I need you to survive the podcast.
What is that?
John Boyega says that at one point.
Okay, all right, sure,
Yeah,
great.
I
That's
agree
a
with
good-
that.
That's we were struggling.
Yeah, that's a good one. That's a good one.
Cool.
There are
What does he need to survive?
the night.
The night. Yeah,
Okay.
I remember that.
It's a trailer line.
that.
There are
Yeah.
only 4 quotes on the Detroit IMDb quotes page, and the other 3 come from the racist cop.
Will Poulter.
Right, and can
Sure.
not be reworded into funny podcast openings.
Oh, I'm gonna have so many thoughts on him. Wait till we get there.
Hey, this is a whole movie of thoughts. Hello, everybody. My name's Griffin Newman.
David Sims.
And this is Blank Check with Griffin and David. We are hashtag the two friends. And this is, in terms of the number of people on mic, the biggest episode we've ever done.
Yeah, except for the live Revenge of the Sith one, I guess. But that was
Sure.
all people were dropping by. This
Right.
is the most that we're all on mic at the same time
Right.
the whole time.
The Rugrats are meeting the Wild Thornberries. The Jetsons
Sure.
are meeting
Flintstones.
the Flintstones.
What else we got? What are some good
the
cross?
Ninja Turtles when they met the Power Rangers.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You
like
know?
Yeah.
when Friends
Classic.
and Mad About You, didn't they cross
Right.
over?
Well,
they had
Kudrow was
Ursula,
sister. Yeah.
right?
When Urkel went to Full House.
Yes.
Mhm.
When the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles met the Turtles from different time periods.
Yeah.
Sure.
James,
so
that's
you
a lot
guys
of
from wait, no, I don't know.
That's a lot
This
of
isn't a
groups,
time
James.
travel. Well, I guess the Jetsons was time travel.
That was
right?
time travel.
No,
It's
but
just
it was
bringing,
only 2 factions.
it's bringing factions.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the thing.
Right.
We
You're
got
wrong,
factions
James.
going here. 2 friends are meeting 3 friends today. This is one of our favorite movie podcasts that we invoke a lot. We have had all
man.
3 of these men on as guests separately.
That's right.
And people were happy, but they said, okay, but when are you going to do the full on
Crossover.
This is a crossover.
When
It's
are
a
you going to
crossover.
blast our eardrums with too much yelling
Yeah.
from a combination of 6 irritable people?
Welcome to Black Men Can't Jump in Hollywood.
Hollywood City.
I don't want to do it for this one.
James, this, yeah, you're right.
I don't want to do it
You're
for
right.
this
Actually,
You're
you're
right
right.
about that.
You're right. We're just
Okay,
hello.
What is
Oh,
that?
oh,
That's
oh,
kind
he's-
of-
That's
oh,
the
okay.
only thing that I could
He's doing a
potentially
Detroiter
do.
song. What was the
Yeah.
name of the group?
yeah, what was the group's name?
The
Shit, I want to look at that.
Dramatics.
They're real-
Dramatics.
they're a real
Great,
group.
They're real, right?
Yeah, they're a real
great
group.
name.
So this is Blank Check meets Black Men Can't Jump in Hollywood.
Yep.
Is there a cool name? I gotta think of a cool name. Like, was it?
Blank Men Can't Check in Hollywood.
Sure.
Done. Done. We did it.
I mean, it's better than Black Check.
Yeah, it was Black Check.
You can't do that.
Black Check Can't Jump in Hollywood.
No,
works for us.
Honestly, that's what
Yeah, it does. It does. You could have called your podcast that.
that makes sense.
This is a podcast about filmographies, directors who have massive success early on and are given a series of blank checks to make whatever crazy passion projects they want. Sometimes the check's clear, and sometimes they bounce. Baby.
Case in point.
Case in point, this is a bouncer. This is a
Yeah.
big bouncer from a woman who seemed to be on a real can't miss roll. She seemed to have, after a real rocky career of ups and downs,
Yeah,
you know, she had found her footing
Yeah.
and had become a full force canonical
People were like, oh, there's a
major
new Bigelow
American
movie on the way.
filmmaker.
What's this going to be? You know?
And we've done a couple miniseries now in a row where the people kind of get their groove back. Or even following up with someone like Shyamalan a year or 2 later.
Sure.
And he rebounds.
They finally figured it out. Right. Yeah,
Right.
yeah. They pulled out of the tailspin.
When we decided to do a Catherine Bigelow miniseries, we thought the run was going to continue.
That's true. We decided to do this before this movie came out.
Right.
Right. And we were like, oh yeah, she's got this big movie coming out in the summer. That'll be a good thing to peg it to.
Right. And now it's a real bummer of a way to end a miniseries. Because it's a movie that is very frustrating
Yeah.
on a number of levels.
Yeah.
And also just
on release, people were like,
nope.
And then that was kinda
wildly
that.
unsuccessful.
Yeah.
And it leaves a big question mark as to where her career is going to go next. If she's going to stay in the zone and try to correct, or if she's going to take another swing, because she's certainly someone who's shifted in terms of styles and genres before.
Sure.
The movie we're talking about is Detroit,
Mm-hmm.
and we have, of course,
And the miniseries is Pod 19, The Widowcaster.
the
You didn't
miniseries
say
of
the
Pod
name.
19, The Windowcaster.
You didn't say the name.
And we have John Braylock,
That's
James
me.
III, and Jerome Milligan.
Yep.
Here on the
Woo.
show today.
Yeah. Yeah.
I just clearly want to establish my voice for the listener. It's the one that sounds less irritated, but also
I haven't done anything yet. What are you doing?
I'm just saying, like,
I haven't done anything.
it's like smooth. It's the rational.
Are you gonna just say what our podcast is? Are you gonna do that
Even
intro?
keel.
Are you gonna do a
Oh
crossover?
yeah.
This dude.
Just for those who don't know, Black Men Can't Jump. We review films starring leading black actors, and we talk about them in the context of race in Hollywood. So this would fall under,
This falls under
This
that.
falls
But you
under it,
guys
yeah.
hadn't done this movie.
but we hadn't done
No.
this
Well,
movie.
Any reason?
Honestly, I fought very hard against it.
Great.
So much so that when this came up, this crossover episode, I low-key forgot the movie until I had to start looking for it, and my anger for it instantly came back.
Yeah. I feel like this is the kind of movie you always are railing against on your podcast.
Oh, the thing is, I can't wait to talk about it.
Yeah.
This movie literally ruined the first half of my morning, but I went on a walk, got to center myself, and now I feel calm.
All
Cool.
right.
See,
I like
John
that.
thought I was going to yell. when
No,
he did
no,
this.
no.
I
He-
rode up
he-
in the elevator with James.
Yeah.
And he was like, I just finished it.
I finished it and then walked straight here. So
And I sort of basically said, like, I'm sorry.
Right.
The last movie she did before this was Zero Dark 30?
Correct.
Yeah. That was like a long period of
That
time,
was
right?
5
Yeah.
years ago,
Yeah.
right? 4
Goodness.
years ago?
Yeah. Yeah.
I feel
yeah,
like it came out-
2012. 5 years ago.
5 years ago.
Yeah.
And there was a
Crazy.
weird series of things she almost did. I mean, I
Yeah,
don't
'cause
think
she-
it was an issue of her not being able to get a movie made. I think it was her being indecisive about what she wanted to do.
Well, because there was that movie Triple Frontier.
Right,
That's
which
now
came-
being made by someone else.
It was JC Chandor, but he might have dropped out. They keep on switching the cast around. She announced right after Zero Dark 30, which was wildly successful. Controversial, but made a
I was
ton of
gonna
money.
say,
Yeah.
controversial.
But
And
it made money and it got Oscar nominations and,
She won for that one, right?
She
no,
won for
she
Hurt
won for Hurt
Locker.
Locker.
Hurt Locker, got you.
But the other big thing is Zero Dark 30 is financed by Annapurna.
Uh-huh.
And Megan
Yep,
Ellison,
Megan Ellison.
who's got endless cash flow, right?
Yep.
Says like,
And
I love
Megan
Catherine
Ellison's
Bigelow.
like, I want to make movies that aren't like
Right.
studio crap. I want to make like movies that are important, blah, blah, blah.
But I
Right?
think
Like,
she's
that's the whole point.
particularly proud of Zero Dark 30. It was the most successful movie they had. So
Yeah, and
she-
everyone was like, it'll never work.
Right.
Like, right. Yeah.
and
yeah.
it was a full-on like blockbuster.
Mhm.
And so I think she's got a real blank check here. Megan Ellison will bankroll whatever she wants to make. She almost does Triple Frontier. I think the cast was supposed to be Johnny Depp, Tom Hanks, and Will Smith.
At one point.
Right.
At one point.
It's kept on-
it's
it's
in
kept
pre-production now. I'm looking at it. JC Chandor, you're right.
Mahershala.
Mahershala, except now he's on the IMDb. I feel like he was announced.
They announced at one point it was going to be Mahershala and the two Afflecks.
No Afflecks. Right now, the cast is Pedro Pascal, Charlie Hunnam, Mark Wahlberg, Garrett Hedlund.
That's a weird.
Wow, really?
But I think Mahershala is definitely supposed to be in it. I know he's
Yeah.
now in True Detective.
She should have had a blank check after Point Break. I mean, because let's
Well,
think about it.
she did.
She
We
did.
talked
Oh, she
about
did?
it. Oh,
Now,
Strange
here's what's
Days.
interesting. Strange Days.
Oh, no,
No,
Strange
that's
Strange
Days, my
Days,
friend.
which is the movie she made right after it, which James Cameron, her ex-husband, had this crazy deal at Fox off of Terminator 2 where they were like, we'll give you $600 million to make however many movies you want. And he's like, cool, I'm going to take $70 million to make True
wait.
Lies.
We don't have to re-explain Strange
Okay.
Days. We don't have time for that. Come on.
But there's a lot of overlap between Strange Days and
Yeah,
Detroit.
yeah.
Except Strange Days is a movie about like police brutality. It's a movie
It's a
about
movie made
like,
in the wake of the LA riots.
right.
Oh,
it's
God.
it's
Wow.
a movie about like an anxious city becoming
Yeah,
violent.
But it's not about a real incident.
and it's also a sci-fi movie.
It's a sci-fi movie, and it has, I don't know. It has a
Yeah.
big cast.
Oh,
and,
I remember this.
But it bombed really hard, and that was a check bounce. Took
Oh,
her a while to recover from that.
wow.
right. Yeah,
So she almost does Triple Frontier. She
Almost
sets up a
does
show
that.
at HBO that doesn't go.
yeah.
And I
Yeah,
think
that's
there are
right.
one or two other movies. The Bo Bergdahl movie, which became Serial Season
Right, which
2.
turns into Serial Season
was
2.
all
which is-
research.
which is
So weird.
Right. That's because it's Mark Bowl, her
Right.
screenwriting collaborator, who is working on these things with her. Yeah.
But it's
yeah.
that thing that sometimes happens when people have this much momentum is they become a little paralyzed by committing to one thing.
Right.
Sure.
Because it always has to be great.
Right.
You can't fail.
Exactly. So then she lays her chips down on this,
Uh-huh.
on Detroit. But for a long time, no one really knew anything about it. They just said, okay, it's a movie about the Detroit riots. It's her and Bull.
Yeah.
And then cast was starting to come out. Boyega was announced. Everyone assumed Boyega was the lead because he was hot off of Star Wars.
This is true.
But people didn't know the title. They didn't know the plot. They didn't know the scope of the story until the trailers started coming out in the summer. And very quickly, people were like,
Oh, yeah. Also, it's like it doesn't need to be called Detroit.
Okay, thank you.
Calling it
Like,
Detroit.
why did you
is
call
a-
it Detroit?
Well, I think one problem they have is there's the book called I want to find the
But
exact
isn't the
title.
book solely about the actual hotel?
Yes,
murder?
but
That's the
they-
thing. The
it's called the
Algiers
Algiers
Motel.
Motel
Right,
incident,
right.
but they do not own the rights to that book.
Okay,
Oh.
interesting.
Because John Hersey refused to sell the rights. So they couldn't call it Algiers Motel or anything like that. I think that was one of their roadblocks. Now, of course, you might be thinking like, I'm going to make a movie about the Algiers Motel incident. They want someone who writes the book. Maybe I shouldn't make the movie.
Right.
Like, oh, maybe this is a bad idea.
Right.
Because
But
this
no.
book is like the book apparently is written by a white guy, but the thing about it is that apparently it's like one of the most accurate and like
Right.
Thoroughly
respected,
researched.
yeah,
Sure.
like respected conversations
They
about
like
race.
weren't allowed to use it, if that makes sense.
Which is crazy because I'm
Which is
thinking like
crazy.
if you have this book that's respected about this incident and that actually talks about race, and the guy sees a problem maybe with your script or your movie, maybe you should listen to the
Right.
dude who like black and white and people from Detroit actually valued.
Right.
Okay,
Wait, why? What was the reason? Was there a stated reason why he didn't? Want
I'm going to find a few because I
Okay.
think there is one.
But I agree with you. I made this point on our Lincoln episode, and David said I was really petty for saying that. But I think it hurts that movie that it's called Lincoln because it's not about Abraham Lincoln. It's about the passing of that amendment. And I similarly think like Lena Dunham got fucked over by calling that show Girls because then people were like, this is a show about all girls. You know? Like
Yeah,
I
I mean,
felt
yeah,
like
it's
she
not.
was constantly asked to like represent everything. That's not the only problem with this movie. But this
Yeah.
movie is not about Detroit.
Not
and
even
it
a
is
it's not about the Detroit riot
at all.
Not even a little
I mean, really, it's
No.
about one specific incident.
Yeah.
And
The
the-
trailer made it seem like it was about the
the
Detroit riot.
posters
Yes.
are the streets.
Yes, and the way it was sold, right? Because the way it was sold was like this needs to be told,
Yeah.
and it's
Right.
all these like sort of vague posters just of the city and the streets.
And you have
like,
John Boyer
groups of-
saying "Survive the Night," which makes it feel like it's going to be an on the ground, like this is what it felt
Yeah.
like to be in the middle of this, and then it's just a movie about this one incident. I think my single biggest issue with this movie is I think it's precisely the wrong size. I think it's both like too big and too small. Like it kind of needed to pick a lane and either be this
hear that.
like
Yeah.
well, aside from the problem that she probably wasn't the person to tell the story, right? But like it either needed to be a large tapestry of like this is explaining this entire circumstance
Yeah.
and showing a lot of different characters over a period of time, or it needed to be like just in the motel. And she's kind of trying to do both a little bit. Like the central 80 minutes of the movie is just the motel, and then she
Sure.
tries to put some context at the
Right.
top and some closure at the end that
Yeah.
doesn't really
Oof.
go down
The
well.
closure at the end, I think, really hurts.
Ooh,
the
that-
movie.
Oh man, I had to pause it and get up at the closure part. 'Cause I'm like, you got my man just, and again, I know first off, I need to know what kind of movie she was trying to make.
Yeah.
Was it a horror movie? For instance, like if you were going to make a horror movie, then like you should have just stuck down.
That
and just
middle
did
chunk
that.
is a horror movie.
It is,
right?
but the thing is, I
Definitely,
couldn't tell
yeah.
if that was the point. Get Out was that. You know what I'm saying? Like Get Out made a horror movie, and they set it up like a horror movie. Whereas this
Right.
movie,
This movie
I don't
is
know what you were
not. It's a
doing.
documentary style horror movie, or I
Yeah.
mean, whatever. Sure, but so
I would have issues with the movie, but I think the movie would be 30% better if she just made a movie that never left the Algiers.
yeah.
You know, and it was
Yeah.
that simple for her. She was like, I just want to do ratcheting tension. I want to do a
Maybe.
story that's a microcosm of what's going on. I still don't think
no,
the
I
movie
think
would have
she would've
totally
been-
worked, but it would have been much
I
better.
think people would have been just as angry about the movie though, because like a lot of
I
people
think
walk
it would
out
have
of
been
that
less
movie.
angry. Still angry.
because people were so mad about like, why are you making me watch this? Like,
Yes.
is your point that the Algiers Motel incident was bad? Because that's not really a controversial or new thing to bring to the table.
I mean, when I saw this movie, there was a talkback with her and a
Yeah,
lot of
this
the
I want to
cast.
hear about.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, well, you know, it was one of those talkbacks where because it was like, you know, union actors and union writers and
Was this like a SAG screening?
yeah,
Yeah.
actually, it might have been a DGA screening to
Oh
be
my
honest, but
God.
they
John.
Oh, John's fancy.
Okay.
but they were like,
We're on 54th Street.
okay, John.
Okay, John. I love everyone just literally was like, yeah, look at
Yeah. To be fair, I deserve all of that.
That's a nice.
Sorry,
That's a nice shirt you're wearing, Bray.
all right. Wait, I want to hear about this.
This is the beauty of having 5-6 people on night.
It's good. It's like we're all laughing. It's a nice like room tone.
Yeah.
All right, sorry, go ahead. My fault. Go ahead.
Okay.
But so there are no tough. They were all softball questions given to her.
How many days did it
with the
take to
moderator,
shoot?
too.
Was there a lot of improv? Like the questions that everyone asks
Yeah.
at every.
But like
Yeah.
her continued stated reason and the actor's stated reason for doing the project was like this story needed to be told, and it's so relevant to what's happening today. You know, essentially, I took from that people need to know when we talk about police brutality, it's a real thing, and perhaps the only way for people to really understand that is for them to be put in that situation and literally empathize with the people who are going through horrific police brutality, and then go, oh wow, I get it now. I get the mistrust of police. I get this. I get that. In my mind, I think that's what she was going for.
This movie has a lot of. I mean, how do we do this? Because the thing is, like, the initial. I guess my initial problem with this movie is that I always bring up sometimes, like, who's the lead of this movie?
That's a great question.
I
There
wanna
is no
say
lead.
The nominal lead is Algie Smith, right?
the
Who
closest
plays
the
Larry.
film
but this is my thing.
Right.
And the thing is, I would never have even thought that he would have been the lead until watching the end of the movie, seeing
Right.
him go to church.
Yeah.
To me, the person who has the most screen time, who legit you see his mind.
I'm going to
playing
agree with
both-
what you're
and
saying
it
right now.
bothers me. It
The
bothers
racist
me.
cop is the lead of the
racist cop is the
movie.
lead of this
Yeah.
movie.
Will
Yeah.
Poulter is the lead of this
Like
movie.
you see him at the beginning.
true.
He's
He
like,
has
I'm
a
not
whole
racist.
arc.
He's
or
giving the
whatever.
most backstory. He's giving the most closure.
The whole thing. And
I
at
agree
certain
with
points,
this. He's the lead of the movie.
At certain points,
This I had that
It's
realization
crazy.
like 40 minutes in. I was like,
It's
what the fuck
crazy.
is she doing? Why is he getting
why
the
is
most
he
screen
leading?
time?
And also, it's like,
Yes.
am I supposed to feel bad when he's like, oh, we're not actually killing them. We're not doing like, wait. So you give a shit at a certain point? Like I was so baffled about. Also, if he's going to be lead, what are you saying about him? Like, are you saying
Nothing.
he's a leveled, multi-layered racist?
Right.
Like, are we defending the racist dude?
I don't think she is, but I think it's just what you're saying. The amount of time you give him, the more she's letting us think about him,
He
right?
has layers.
I mean,
Yes,
I've-
which
I-
sucks.
I've been saying this the whole podcast, the whole miniseries,
Yeah.
like especially the Hurt Locker and Zero Dark 30. She's like, I'm giving you bring yourself to this, right? I'm giving you what happened. You can project what you want onto it. I feel like she has this very removed perspective, and it really hurts her in this movie.
Well,
Especially in the
I'm going to say, my problem with this, the idea of a removed perspective is like, it's inherently a lie. Like,
right,
you
right,
cannot
right.
have a
It's-
removed perspective,
exactly.
especially with Zero Dark 30. I mean, like that, the idea of like, this is exactly how it went down. It's like, no.
But I also think Zero Dark 30 is like this kind of like messy gray area story where it's like,
For
okay,
sure.
this thing that we were all very invested in, this
Right.
thing that was seen as a great victory when we did it, the means to how we got to that point are kind of murky. But this story is like, no, this sucks.
Right, it
this
happened.
is bad. Like,
Right.
there's no kind of gray area
Documented.
about like, but wait a second.
And also, they use certain elements because, like, when this movie first came out, and I remember when John went to that screening, I like started Googling it and started looking stuff up, and they do have that end card at the end of the movie saying like some of the facts people really don't know, like some things they exaggerated, which I guess I respect. But for instance, another thing that bothered me is that they had Eazy-E. I'm gonna call him Eazy-E.
Jason Mitchell.
Jason Mitchell.
Guys, Eazy-E.
Okay, easy.
Eazy-E. Eazy-E is
It
in the
could
movie.
be an
for one
Oscar
second.
nominee this year. Easy.
I mean,
not for this movie. Not for this
Eazy-E should have got an Oscar nomination last time, but I'm
He
gonna
was-
leave that alone.
yeah, yeah.
1,000%.
Like
Yeah,
he
yeah,
definitely
100%.
should have got it. But the thing about the gun, right? So think about the gun, depending on who you ask about the gun and whether the gun was real, whether the gun was there, like the gun was never found, is that a lot of people say the gun never existed, period.
Sure.
So a lot of people say the gun just didn't exist.
So her
Right, and then
including it
her
even is a
including-
bit of editorialization.
yeah, that also bothers me because what you do is like you show this black dude shooting this gun at the cop, whether the gun was real or not. And they say in the movie the gun was a toy gun, but he's doing this aggressive act, which almost could say, oh, he is the reason that they came here in the first place, almost putting the blame on them,
Oh, yeah.
which is the thing they say about black people all the time. It's like, oh, what did you say back?
What
Like,
did you do to provoke
What did you
this?
do to let this
if,
happen?
If I didn't know that the gun was something that like
It's a questionable
it's
thing.
still
It's
a
chaotic.
question.
It's
Still,
still a
still
question.
a question
Yeah.
today.
They legit
and
never
that
found
being
it.
said, can I just fuck this movie?
Oh wow!
No, because that was the thing that upset me the most was like how cock and bull? What's the term?
Yeah.
He
Well,
was
sure.
being
Yeah.
he when he's like just shooting.
Well, that scene is so peculiar because
Yeah.
we don't know who this guy is. He just walks in, right?
And so if that is a question, to show it feels like it's hurt. That's
It's
gonna
that
do
thing.
harm to them.
It's that thing to me is like, oh, and again, the moment I saw him with that gun, I was like, oh, if he shoots once, it's a problem. Okay, he's only going to shoot once. there are literally shots of him just like popping off with this gun.
Yeah.
It's-
And I'm like, you're literally putting the blame on them with this shot.
Like it's Keanu
Yeah.
at the beginning of Point Break.
Yeah.
Like it's him
It
just
is.
like,
It's like
right.
just doing it. Like, so now basically everything that happens from this point, because what you do is you have his black friend say, hey, if you do this, they're going to come kill us. So you have it said out loud,
Right.
and then you have him make a choice to keep popping these guns off. And then after that, the whole movie, the racist cop saying, where's his gun? Everything that happens to them is about this gun.
That scene essentially makes the movie Hellraiser. Like if
Yeah.
you open this
Yes.
box, Pinhead's
Yes.
going to come out.
Yeah.
And then he does it. So it weirdly makes the situation less sympathetic.
It does.
Because
Not fully, but
not-
like in a way that's
only
like
a
she
little
shouldn't be
bit.
doing
Right.
anything to take away from the horror of these circumstances.
Yeah. And I
Sure.
really liked when the gun was first introduced and he's like, I'm going to show you white privilege, you know? And he's like playing that game. Like, I really liked that
I mean,
scene.
and he's a
and-
good fucking actor.
yeah. But then like the next scene is just like,
But there are tons of movies that I think are good that deal with true life stories where we don't know all the details, and they own the mystery, and they do not try to dramatize the things we don't know. They make a story and tension around that. Something like Zodiac, where they can't depict the things.
Well, right. That's what Zodiac's
there's
about.
no right,
Yeah.
Right.
right.
Yeah. But
But
no,
I
Mark
think-
Bowl is not about that.
Sure,
Right.
But
Yeah.
you could have made a movie if they all knew we don't know exactly what happened in that first room.
Mm-hmm. Where we're not seeing what's in that. Maybe
Where
we
it
hear
starts
some noise,
after that,
whatever.
and
right,
the police come in and they go, "What happened? Where was the gun?"
Sure.
And you play into the mystery of no one in this room knows what actually happened.
Yeah.
Can I give you
We
a
don't
pitch?
know what actually happened. Sure.
So, like, for instance, one of the things that happened after this incident is that a church in Detroit had their own trial once all the white guys got off, right? And it was like this big civil rights thing, and it was just like people from all over, and they kind of held like their own mock trial of like with real facts, with real issues, and they found the guys guilty, right? To me, it's like if you wanted to really show what happened and maybe have flashbacks, you do something like
That's
that.
to frame it around.
Yeah, just
that.
frame it around this
Yeah.
thing. We actually go back and see different things, and like the white girls that were there who talked
Sure,
about it, see like how people viewed it, but don't just show me this crazy horror scene.
Right.
And also the moment, and the thing that bothered me the most is that before, in the horror movie style, when we see the players,
when
we
it
see
becomes
them
a
at the
haunted
party.
house movie.
Yeah,
Well,
we
that's
see
the
it. We
thing.
see them.
Yeah.
We see the two white girls who fucked the black dudes, and we know this is now going to be a problem, right? We know the fact that like this one dude genuinely likes this one girl. They have a connection. This is now an issue.
She's planting seeds. But I mean, that's the thing. You see, that's the thing about the movie. It's like,
Right.
she wants the tension to be building because she
Yeah.
wants you to go like,
Yeah.
oh no, I don't know if he should be firing that
Yeah.
toy gun. Like, shit. You know, like, and I mean, I'm saying she, like, it's like only her. I mean, Mark Bowl wrote the screenplay.
Right.
But, like, oh, fuck, I'm losing my
Can
train
I
of
call
thought
it the
here.
elephant in the room while you're regaining your train of thought?
Yeah.
I just want to point out quickly, this is the only time in history that Jarrah has been made angry by a swirl being included
Oh,
in a movie.
wow.
this is
you're right.
history.
Wow, you're
In history.
actually right. Oh my god, I didn't even think about it. First
Yeah.
off, we do see them kiss, right?
Yeah,
We do
yeah,
see
you
them
see them
kiss.
make out.
But the thing
Yeah.
that's so interesting about that swirl is that like one, this is solely about race, but it's also a thing of the it's the thing of like that hatred that these white cops felt the moment they saw those white girls
Sure.
in that room.
Right.
I think in all honesty, and this may be my theory, I think in all honesty, and this is not to take away from that situation, but if they would have not been there, if you just wouldn't have saw the white girls, I think this situation for those black men may have been different.
I agree 100%.
And I
Like,
think
it
the
may have
movie
just been
thinks
different.
that.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, I guess what I was trying to say was the movie wants you, and maybe this is part of the problem, to think like, hey man, even if they fucked up by shooting the toy gun, they don't deserve it, or right, like
Yeah.
this shouldn't happen. But already you're in this like tricky gray area where like you guys are saying, where it's like, or in the same thing where you have different kinds of racist cops, where it's like, oh, I think that cop's dumber than that cop.
Yeah.
That cop's more racist than that cop. Where immediately you're putting people on different levels.
Sure.
And
Sure,
like
two of the cops are like, well,
yeah.
maybe they're only like 75% racist.
Right,
as
and then of
opposed
course
to, like,
later we see a cop who's like, "Oh, you fucking racist," or we're seeing this couple who would do this to someone, and like everything you do is so loaded, like you know,
Right.
like
Well,
even if
yes.
you have maybe some story intention with it.
I'll tell you my least favorite scene in the movie. It was the scene that started making me feel really angry, and it was when I was starting to realize, like, oh shit, Will Poulter's the lead of this movie.
That's a
when-
good call.
When he shoots the guy in the back, right, and then he goes into his like his chief's office, and the chief essentially gives him a speech where he's like, "This is your last warning. If you keep being
He puts him back
racist,
on the
Puts him
street.
back on the street.
He's like,
Crazy.
"I'm pretty sure you just shot a guy for no reason on the street, so I got my eye on
Right,
you.
but
like that's his.
They like present this hero police chief who's like, I know exactly what's going
Sure.
on. Racism is bad. You better stop it. No good. Very bad. Don't do it. But also get back out there.
Well, and also
kid.
there's that scene right early on where like the tank like shoots out a window.
Yeah.
And you're like, what happened there? Wait a second. And there's no further explanation of it. And it feels like almost just meant to rattle.
Don't we
you.
see a kid looking
We
out
see a
that
kid
window?
looking out
we
the
see a
window.
kid look out the
They
window.
shoot the window, and you're like, did something happen
Did
there?
that little girl just die
Did a
from a
girl
tank?
die from a tank? Is this
and-
something that's inciting things, but they don't come
Yeah.
back to it?
During the riots, like a young black girl was killed. But the thing that's so fascinating about even, I'm happy you brought up the good police sergeant or whatever. The reason I knew something was off is that as he's describing, everybody hates Chris.
Everybody hates Chris.
Everybody hates Chris.
Tyler Williams.
Yeah,
whatever his
yeah.
name is.
He's the one who gets-
Tyler James
Yes,
Williams.
he's the
That's
one who
his
gets shot.
Everybody hates Chris.
I'm sorry. He's the one who gets shot in the back, right? But as he describes the guy who gets shot, and he was everybody hates Chris.
I mean, they were right. Everybody hated him.
Everybody
They
hates
shot
Chris.
him in the back.
The sergeant literally describes him as, oh, yeah, it was the only shooting where a guy leaked out under a car. So, like, you really just threw away the fact that this guy, I don't know if he's dead yet, but
Yeah.
I know he was found bleeding under a car. And like you're just saying it in passing, like it's not a big deal.
Which speaks to this movie giving you like 8 minutes of really intense rioting on the streets that are essentially just there to serve as window dressing for the story she wants to
That's
tell.
the problem. If you're
Yes.
making a movie about it, that's fine. But right, instead it just sort of feels
all
like
you show were the black people
preamble.
rioting.
You see this one incident,
Yeah.
right, with the black cop going in undercover and infiltrating.
First scene.
Right. And then immediately things go from like 0 to 6 million with riots in the street without actually presenting a sort of any sort of understanding as to how these things escalate.
That there was so much escalation before this moment.
What was simmering under the surface? Like you could like Do the Right Thing spends 2 hours
There is
setting up
the animated.
The riot, yes.
Right.
2 hours setting up
You
that
know?
riot.
And
There
this
is the
movie is
animated
just like
introduction. I forgot about that.
Oh yeah, the quick history lesson.
Ugh.
This is my big problem
There's
with
a
this
history
movie.
lesson.
I think that I can give it as a whole, and I will say this is just my theory personally. After working at places, like I worked at MTV News, right? John and James know how much I hated it, and I think the problem I have sometimes is that the woke white person thinks they may know a little bit better, and they may use like, oh, my friend or my coworker who is a black person like told me it's okay. So I know she didn't write this movie. But the problem with this movie is that there's nuances missing. Like when Steven Spielberg did The Color Purple, he knew what he like. The thing is, it was so much pressure. He was so like surrounded by black people who were questioning everything. Like everything is like, does this make sense? Why are you doing that? Which is why that movie has little nuances that are interesting. Like, how does Steven Spielberg know to do this? Because it wasn't him just saying it. You know, like he had help. Whereas in this movie, I don't know if she had the help that she needed to get this done. Like you would have never added this quick scene of which people believe did start the Detroit riots, the speakeasy. People believe that happened, but all you show after that is literally just black people rioting in the streets. You didn't show the people and their families who were scared of everything else.
And starting with the
Right.
speakeasy makes it seem like the speakeasy is what caused the Detroit riots without giving any sort of pretext other than a fucking animated intro. James, I can see your burn.
Also,
up
like
on
the animated intro just really rubbed me the wrong way. Also, because it starts with like the Great Migration,
Right.
blah blah blah. They
The
walk-
Great
and then,
Migration?
it's like
Great
that's how it
Migration.
starts.
Yeah,
It
truly.
starts with that, and then
Right.
it goes like, and then like and then. They started working, and then they moved to the suburbs, and then shit happened. That's the
It's like that
They
joke.
pulled the money away.
It's like that joke on like sitcoms where people go like, "Can you tell me the story?" Just start at the beginning, and they go, "Okay, I was born in 18,"
Yeah,
and you go
right,
like
yeah.
later, and then they go ahead too far. Like the movie tries to give you too much context, and then it's like, hurry it up, and they're like, "Okay, we'll get to the point."
Yeah.
But you're
Yeah.
missing the stuff that actually is relevant to this specific
Well,
tale.
I feel like that animated opening, more so than anything else, really clarifies that Catherine Bigelow was making this film for a white audience.
Yes.
Yeah.
You know?
100%.
And not only a white audience,
What
but
you're
like
saying
a
from the
white.
talkback sounds like that too. where
Yeah,
it's just like,
absolutely.
sure.
She was like, people need
People
to know
need
that
to
this
know.
happened. And the idea was like, okay, there are a bunch of white people who like don't understand like why black people mistrust police, and I need to show them with this film, and like I need to give them like a little quick history lesson so that they understand, you know, what was happening and the inequality that was happening to them here, and then why they started rioting, and then show the riots, and then show how devastating the riots were by like showing maybe a little girl just got shot by a tank, showing this kid that we don't know, you know, who's like who's like taking groceries and then getting getting shot in the back. Even if a white person's like, he shouldn't have been stealing those groceries, but he didn't deserve to die. And then, they shouldn't be rioting, but it is pretty. It's crazy that the tanks are happening, and then it's like, well, they shouldn't have shot that gun at those police, but you're right. I mean, they didn't deserve to have a night of horror. It's always like this.
There's
Like
equivocation, and even if the movie's not trying to equivocate, it's that you equivocate. It's letting you. It leaves the space for it.
And also the problem is, as a tension-based filmmaker, that opening chunk of like riot stuff is so frightening in the same way that the stuff in the Algiers Motel is, because she's going for intensity, where she's making it look like a horror movie.
Sure.
Yeah.
Rather than like a moment of sort of like uprising, something that has a statement behind it.
But I'll tell you this right now. This is tricky, and this is in defense of Catherine Bigelow. I respect that she tried to like help show the light of that, but the thing that's so tricky about it, and I don't know the answer to this. I mean, we talk about it on our podcast. I don't know, because I think Steven Spielberg did a good job with The Color Purple. I can't sit here and say that a white person can't direct a movie about black people. I can't say that a woman can't direct a movie that deals on men issues. Like, I can't say that if you're informed. But the thing that's very, very hard for me is that as a black person, even right now, walking down the street, if I walked out with you guys, say John and James were here, and it was a cop that come up, I will automatically tense up. Like, that's just how I'm in. It just happens. Because at the end of the day is that I don't know the difference when I first see someone, whether this is a good cop or a bad cop. I know that they are good cops. I know they exist. I know they're great. But I don't know who I'm seeing right now until the confrontation or the incident happens. So the fact that she had this movie where there's even a part where like the white girls, when they get taken out of the room by the it's not a cop. He's a
National Guard.
The National Guard guy. Yeah,
she goes, "Are you going to tell the cops we're here? Are we safe? Are you going to tell the cops we're here?" In that statement right there, to me, that is what this movie needed to get to.
Sure,
that statement is like,
the
fear you have right now is you can't tell who is here to help you. Yeah. And these are the people who are hired to protect you, and you are scared now.
Okay, so there are two bigger issues I feel like we're talking about now that are the two main things that this movie represents that we need to talk about. One is the sense of like, who gets to tell what stories. And Bigelow is a really interesting person to talk about in that light, because like her two biggest movies are movies about masculinity.
Yeah.
Are like Point Break and Hurt Locker. Right?
Yeah.
And then Zero Dark 30, I'd say, is like the third.
Sure.
And that's one of only like
so much,
two movies she made that has like a female lead. Most of her career has been about depicting sort of testosterone with this outsider perspective, but with this level of like specificity and detail. And Point Break's a lot more heightened, is a little more satirical. Hurt Locker's a lot more stripped down. But you watch both those movies, and it's like she's getting some things about masculinity that I don't know a male director would have the distance to be able to perceive. But it also feels like with those movies, she did her time, she did her research. Film is collaborative. I feel like when people talk about like, well, this person shouldn't be allowed to tell this story, they ignore the fact that there are a lot of people involved in a movie. But the difference is someone like Spielberg coming in with Color Purple and knowing what he doesn't know, and knowing when to listen and when to ask, versus like, I think I got this. I think I have a solid handle on this story.
Well, and also, I mean, it's directed by her.
Sure.
It's written by Mark Bowl. It's produced by Megan Ellison and other white people. You're not seeing a lot of diversity at the top of the movie. Like Barry Ackroyd shot it, who's the guy, he's British for sure. And he's the guy who like does the Bourne movies. I mean, I don't know.
They were very concerned about getting the story of what happened inside the hotel, right? That was I think,
detail.
Like that's where because they did put a lot of research into this movie, but I think that's where most of their research was like, let's recreate this exactly how it happened and really get people to feel like they're there. So much so, I mean, I don't know if you guys found this in your research, but during the talkback, they said, somebody asked the question like, how much did you know about this movie before it started? And what's the kid who plays the main?
Algie Smith.
Algie Smith. Yeah. Algie Smith said nothing.
Yeah.
And he's only 22 years old.
Yeah.
He was born in 94.
They didn't they didn't give him a script. When he was auditioning, he didn't know the character that he was auditioning for. And then during the auditions, like they would just do improv, and like the improv would be like him like being put against the wall and like, getting roughed up and all this stuff. And then like that's what they did when they were filming it. Like she kind of
They should have
method
kept the
acted.
details. Right.
Yeah,
Like, did they not have they didn't have an understanding of the script as a whole?
Yeah, they didn't. Like the idea was like so, and then
to get them to be frightened and confused or whatever,
real,
or
like
you know,
to really
whatever,
feel
to try and
it,
tap
like,
into
not,
that.
to really not know what's going to happen next. You know,
That's a weird balance to be like, we're going to research this. We're just going to try to depict things exactly as they were, but not tell actors what's going
yeah,
on.
they said they don't know. They,
Right.
Like Boyega was like they didn't know where the cameras were when they were filming.
That is a horror movie, dude.
Well, and this
I mean,
is-
that's what they were doing.
Yes.
But that
They
is what they
definitely
were
were
doing.
making a horror
I mean,
movie.
I will
Wait.
say this: like that scene, like the main scene of the movie, is horrifying.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's effective.
It's a very effective in that I was like, yep. I don't know. Like, there is no right thing to do. Anybody who thinks, you know, oh, why didn't they do blah, 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 that kind of logic would immediately leave your mind when seeing this movie because you say, there's nothing you can do. When somebody is this bent on making sure you're guilty, you're literally,
Right.
your life is at their hands. There's nothing, you can think you can say the right thing. You could say the right thing, the wrong thing. You could try to stand up for yourself and not stand up for yourself. You know, you can run away, get shot, or stay there and get shot. You know what I mean? Cooperate and still get shot.
Yeah.
So
You know,
What's just going through your head over and over is like, this is unfair. This is the worst.
Yeah.
It's like,
Right.
this is unfair. Like,
I
right?
agree.
Just sort of
Yeah.
echoing around. Wait, you're I just want to know, you're talking, was that before the movie came out? I'm just wondering like where their minds were, because I bet
they
they
had
felt
gotten, like,
different.
it was
after-
definitely
backlash, yeah.
before. It was
before it came out, before the
definitely
reviews.
before the wide release.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think. I feel like it was like maybe like a day or two before like the limited release.
Sure.
Yeah.
I
Because it
just
actually
hearing-
still got good reviews for the most part.
kind of.
It's
Yeah.
like 80% or something.
Yeah, it is
But
pretty
Rotten
high.
Tomatoes
Yeah.
is that's not a good way
I
to
know, but
measure.
I got you.
But all those
strong
reviews are
reviews, if
like,
that makes sense.
Bigelow ratchets up the tension again.
Right.
Another
But-
the edge of your seat.
James, what do you
well,
want?
just like hearing the thing that you were saying, Bray, about how like wondering like why didn't they do blank. A thing that kept coming up in my mind was like, why is no one talking about the toy gun that happened? Like I kept that kept
They
repeating
had
in my
that.
mind, and then
Why none of them were talking about?
Yeah,
Like why
why
they
none
kept
of-
saying like there is no gun.
there's no gun.
I know because I was
at
like,
all.
you guys are that confident
I
that
was
you
like,
hid that gun.
You saw it.
How could you be that confident?
Right, and only two of them were in the room besides Jason Mitchell
Right.
that were up against the wall, right? Like there were only two other
It
people.
was well, it's the two white girls and the two members of the Dramatics,
Okay.
right?
Yeah,
Well, no, were they in that room when he was shooting at them though?
Yeah,
I think
technically,
they were.
everybody
'cause
was
it was
in
when
there.
they were
They were all in the same room.
Everybody
when he was
was in the
shooting
room.
at the police.
Yeah,
Oh, see,
well-
I didn't even.
But I'll say this: the movie also like it gets so chaotic during this section, which I know why she's doing it because she wants this sort of
Yeah.
like a fear-based filmmaking. But it also got to a point where I was like, wait, did I miss Anthony Mackie getting introduced?
I had
Yeah.
no clue he was there today.
Right.
The cops dragged him.
There's a
Right.
certain point where he just like turns around and I'm like, that's Anthony Mackie. When did I miss him talking?
The geography of the hotel, I have no
It's
idea
fucked.
what. I was like,
Yeah.
what, where, what?
And
because
this- yes.
they show this hotel.
Yes.
They show like the
It
main
has
set
like
of
an
the,
annex, though,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, so
it does.
you don't
I guess
really
it's like
get.
this annex, like
Yeah.
But it doesn't feel like when they first were in that room. I thought it was just a different apartment building.
Yeah, it
I
felt
didn't
far.
realize it was the
Thank you for
hotel.
bringing this up because this drove
felt
me
far.
crazy.
Yeah.
When they go from the hotel, they're talking outside the hotel by the pool, and then they go to this other house. I had no idea if they were like 20 minutes away, if they were
No
in the
clue.
backyard, if it was a different room, whatever it was.
None.
But also, once we get to the section of the movie, the centerpiece of the movie, which is like these people up against a wall, these cops, guns pointed, separating them, playing this intimidation game, right? You have no idea where any of the rooms are in relation to each other.
Yeah.
And the movie is playing this game of like, okay, he's up here, she's down here, he's there, this guy's there. And I couldn't figure out who was where
I was
at
like,
all.
what? And also,
Interesting.
where
I
are
did
any
not
of the
struggle with this, I'm
hotel?
going to be honest.
I guess my
Go on,
thing was
sorry.
like there was no hotel attendants, and there
Right.
like
Right.
I was like
because
no,
they're in this annex, I think.
But then why?
But
But
that
if
isn't
it's
even
still
clearly
part of
set
the
up.
hotel,
Right.
then
Yeah.
why didn't
Oh,
somebody from the
right.
hotel
Right.
come over and go like, "What's happening?"
Any of
Like,
it.
Right, because Samira Wiley plays like a clerk who they talk to
Yeah,
early on in the movie, who's at the desk, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
And then there's like the pool.
There's
It's
a
been little
pool
while since
area
I
which
saw it.
feels like the main part
the
of
main
the hotel.
part, right?
Right.
But then there's
The-
this like house,
Yeah,
and they're in
it's
a
just a
hallway,
house.
and there's
Right.
like 4 rooms off the hallway, and there's stairs up, and there's like more rooms goes off.
But outside of the house, it looks
But
like they're just in
it
a
looks
suburb.
like they're in
Right,
the
exactly.
suburbs.
I was
Yes.
thinking that too. I was wondering like why nobody was coming from the hotel to check up on it. But then I was like, they have sort of established that the riots, no one
Are
goes out.
close? Yeah.
No one goes out after a certain period of time.
But they were on the property. Like it'd be different if you like, because there was a curfew in effect. But if I worked at the motel, I'm literally just walking to the back of the motel. Like that's not
Right.
like me
Yeah.
being out and
This is the real
About.
place. I mean, which I assume they
Oh,
just
it's
sort of
right.
re-
Yeah, it really
It's an
does
annex.
look like a house.
oh wow.
And
Right,
yeah,
because
it's like a
there's-
house that's off the motel.
But when they
it
pull
is
up to the
connected.
motel, you get this visual of something that really looks like a motel with a neon
more like
sign.
a classic.
So when they
right,
cut to the
right.
house and this like front lawn, I just was like, I don't
Yeah,
know
the
where
house
fuck
basically looks like the
we
fucking
are.
Amityville Horror House or whatever.
Right.
It might as well be in like
So
Long
crazy.
Island in the suburbs.
I guess my whole thing with this part too is like, I sincerely couldn't understand how those cops like got here.
Yes.
Because they
Yeah.
seemed, when he was shooting it from the window, it was like there were trees in the way. Like when we see the cops like ducking, or the National Guard like
Yeah.
ducking down,
Right.
they have no idea where it's coming from. Then somebody says like it's the motel, but my thing is like, did the cops know that this
Was in the
house
back?
was a part of the motel?
dude.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's
it's a
so
good
many,
question.
There's so many
I'm trying to
problems.
remember.
My
Anyway,
biggest problem.
No,
I know it's nitpicky, but
My biggest problem about the whole thing is that, again, and I will never let it go, is that you made a movie about victims, like terrorizers and victims.
Sure.
At what point, I'm even going to include this in part. When did we get to know really anything about these black people besides the fact that they were like there?
So
Only Algie Smith's character.
Yeah.
Kind
No,
of.
but
kind of.
I
yeah.
really like the moment that they give him to sing on stage by himself.
Yeah.
I love that.
I really like that
Yeah.
part. I thought that was like a great, like, oh yeah, like he just has this dream that he is like not faulting. I think he's gonna like
Sure.
go out and do
Well,
it.
and also
I
look,
think that scene's good. I mean, the
Yeah.
only problem I have with a lot of those scenes is you're just kind of sitting there with your fist balled up, being like, "What the fuck is going
Yeah.
to happen?"
right. I
You
know
like-
what's going to happen.
So everything feels like a little bit of a tease for some future horror.
This
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
like
But
everything
that
about
scene's
him was
really
a horror
effective, I
movie.
think. Sorry, Joe.
And the thing, if you're gonna have him, and then what's the kids from Slate, his best friend
Who you
who
talking about?
dies?
Jacob Lattimore.
Yeah. Like you got him in there, and it's like, okay, cool. Let's build this friendship up a little bit more. We see that Jacob Lattimore like always supports him, right? We see they both like the girls. He's a little bit more shy. Let's build the people. Show me
Oh, yeah.
the women. Show
Then
me like were
Jason
they
Mitchell
prostitutes?
comes in with a toy gun. Like
Yeah.
that's the thing.
like,
Like it's like
were they prostitutes? I still don't know what
Fair
they,
enough.
they were, right?
They were?
They weren't really.
But
They
then
were
they
just
make
like
the jokes about
girls
doing it,
who
right.
were like
They like fucking
Like-
black dudes.
yeah, but it's not like they weren't like working prostitutes. If that makes sense.
Okay,
They weren't
They
getting
were
paid
kind of
to have
like
I just wish I knew.
runaways.
Yeah.
They definitely were runaways, but
Yeah.
I didn't.
Who maybe had been paid,
But,
like you
let me
know,
know.
sort of.
Like,
I think it
we're
was more of a
assuming.
casual.
Leaves these many things unanswered, even about like where the house is in relation to the hotel
Yeah.
and who the people are, and all of that is just like, yeah, I don't know. For a movie like this to work, you need to lay all the pieces out on the board very clearly. Whether or not you should have been making this movie, if you want this type of movie to function, you need to know where everyone is in relation to each other, who everyone is, what their backstories
well,
are.
I think that's
what they
and right,
feel.
and that's the challenge Bull likes to set.
Right.
right, and he's set it, and it's whatever.
But Hurt Locker and Zero Dark 30 are both about one character. Like he's
Yeah.
using one
Yeah.
character to guide you through this larger kind of thing that's going
Oh,
on.
well, technically,
that's
we
the
got
thing
the
that-
one character in this one, and it's the same, just like the character from Zero Dark 30, same like the character from Hurt Locker. It's just a white one. Let's be straight up. My man basically opens the movie. He has the longest scene. We see that he should have got fired. He didn't get fired. We even see his mind switch while he's at the motel
Yeah.
of like he's playing everyone against each other.
Well, the other
Man.
conversation that we have with him that's kind of a lot more layered is the one that he has when they're patrolling before he shoots the guy, right? And they're just like, look at them, like what the one dude who I think we're supposed to think is more racist by the end of the movie. I don't know.
Which dude?
Or the
Who wasn't as racist? He's the one who told.
who's
partner.
the guy? Who's his partner who like shot? Who wound up accidentally shooting?
That's the guy
That's,
who we're supposed to believe
it's,
like was super racist.
Jack
but-
Rayner, right?
Yeah, but he's
Yes.
like not as racist because like
He's just
you know.
stupid.
Yeah,
I
he's
think
just
that's
dumb.
the pitch on him is that he's a dumbass. Like I
Yeah.
guess,
Which is an easy out for the other two cops that they eventually portray both of them as just being like, well, they're just dopes.
Yeah.
Well, no,
what's his name?
no.
Killed.
I'm not saying they're just dopes, but
They made
it's
him like,
like
he made it like an accent. He's like, I thought I had to. He's like, I
Right.
thought I had. Oh, you talking about the skinny one? Which one are you talking about?
there's the kind of like jittery one with the longer slick back hair, right?
I'm trying to find
He
the
was
name
in,
of that actor because I
what is
don't
he?
remember what his
He
name
was
is.
in.
He is familiar.
He's in like one of the mummy movies. I think he's in like the third mummy movie.
Really?
The one where Jet Li was in it.
Oh, I didn't see that one.
Oh, he's in like Jack Reacher or something like that too.
Well, no,
Didn't they have a
the
conversation?
blonde guy is the guy from Transformers 4.
That's Jack
yeah,
Ranger.
okay.
That's the
Jack
stupid one.
Ranger.
The
Right.
other one who is maybe, kind of the one who's just like
Yeah.
a brute. That's Ben O'Toole.
That's what I'm talking about.
Is his
The
name.
brute one.
Gotcha.
Because I think in the beginning
he
he
hasn't been
says
in much.
he says something like he says something to the effect of like, "Look at them, they're animals." Blah blah.
Sure, right.
And then what's my man's name from Maze Runner?
Will Poulter,
Will Poulter.
who you know was originally supposed to play Pennywise.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
He did this instead of it
Yeah.
Yeah, he did this instead of it. He was
I
going to
know.
play another
I can
embodiment
understand
of
him.
evil.
because he was like, "Look, I want to play an unstoppable force of evil, but can I have a little backstory?
I mean,
can I have the movie give me more screen time to make me a little more?"
I mean, also he was like, "Oh man, it's Catherine Bigelow. I gotta do it."
Right.
Like he, everything.
I
on
mean, to
paper,
be fair-
it's a logical decision
On paper, he had to
Like,
do
I'll
it.
take
Yeah,
the Catherine
Anthony
Bigelow movie
Mackie,
over.
John Boyega was in it.
He
That
had to
made
do
sense.
it. He
But could
had
you
to do it.
imagine if like it had this many scenes of Pennywise going into his office?
Oh.
And the chief of the clown service was like, "Look, Pennywise, you gotta stop eating these kids.
I think
I'm gonna
funny you
take
say
you off the
that.
streets if you don't
I think
stop
you're
eating
being
these
a
kids."
little.
No.
I don't know. That scene is bad.
It's funny you say it because technically,
I don't think that's-
that scene
is not
existed
how-
in it, but they took it out because they said the focus shouldn't be on it. The scene fucking existed when he goes back in time, where you figure out how he becomes it when he's still a damn human.
Doesn't
But
matter.
they realize it's not about him.
Pennywise is bad. Who cares?
That wow, it had more concern.
Right.
I just want to say, I think you're being not hard on that scene exactly, but like slightly pithy about that scene because that scene is definitely there to tell us why the character is angry as well.
But also to show
I'm
that
not
the
saying,
whole
Sure.
I think it's a little bit of an easy causality or whatever, but I don't think it's a scene where the cop's like, geez, you're really
What I don't like about
pushing it
that
out
scene is
there.
mostly the way it depicts the chief, where I think it's kind of a like, well, not all white people. We're about to
I-
show
yeah,
you three
yeah.
very
This-
racist cops, but this guy, he likes it.
I think that's the problem with the movie, where it's like, no matter what, if you portray a character right, then it immediately, like I say, feels like equivocation, even if you're trying to be accurate or whatever
Especially
the hell
'cause it's so-
hole you've dug
right,
for yourself.
Right.
for me, if there was no commentary by any of the characters, then that scene doesn't bother me because I recognize watching it and hope other people do. Like, wow, this chief knows that his patrol officer maybe killed the person in cold blood and then let him back off in the street.
Yeah.
that dude's messed up. Also, all the National Guard, all of the other cops, like everybody who was there at the place, because there were so many people there, law enforcement there, and they all just were like, I don't know, just let them handle it. We're just going to be, and it indicts all of them. Like, you're all guilty. So much so that John Boyega becomes a part of the problem too. We have to talk about him. We have to talk about him.
Well, okay,
But
we
like,
have to talk about.
But before we do, like that should be there. But then we do get scenes like the ones that happen after the incident, where we have this like really tough, almost army general looking, person like bring Will Poulter in and then bring the other two in and like chew them out for being racist. Like, he's like, get it, you know what I mean? And we're supposed to think
that is
this is a good, you know what I mean? So it's like we have those things, but we don't have the scene where people are getting chewed out for their complacency, for their
Sure.
You know what I mean?
It becomes so much about these three supervillains, and it's two guys who are like dumb. They're
like
racist because they're dumb, and one guy who's like a Machiavellian supervillain genius who knows how to like.
He's not a genius.
And I have a problem
there's
with
nothing
even-
genius about him.
I have a problem with even
There's
that
not.
character
Within the
though.
context of the movie.
Because
No, I don't.
Who
think
the main
so.
dude? The main racist?
No, the chief that like chews them out at the end because he goes, get in here, you knuckleheads. People have died.
Yeah.
People have, and
They're
calls
treating it
them
like knuckleheads. Yeah.
And so I didn't even see that as like I literally looked at every white person in this movie as a villain. And I
except
think,
for that one scene,
and except for that one when
where
the
they
guys,
show that cop come and be like,
Who
and
would do this?
Yeah, who would do this? Oh, and he
Right.
like gently like picks him up and like brings him to the police.
But
And
you
I was
see
like,
exactly.
why did you put
And
this
that
film?
scene-
Why did you put this scene in the movie?
it's like
at all?
it's like what is that?
Well,
scene?
see, no, I can tell you why. To me,
I know why.
No. I mean, aside from the white savior part, but I think that scene to me personally shows that like the guy, the main black dude, was terrified of him because again, we don't know this dude is good.
Right. Right. There's a way you can
It's
do
like,
that scene
and you
where
could
it's
have done it
effective.
better.
Sure.
But I think the one thing this movie should have harped on because they're trying to say it because it's from, this is what's happening now. I think one of the things that gets lost in translation a lot of the time is that when African Americans say there's a problem with police, people are like, oh, nah, man, you can't just shit on all police. And every time we always say the same thing. It's not all police, but we just don't know who's good and who's bad. Like we just don't. So if you would have had in this movie, I would allow a fake character in this movie. I would allow
the cops are fake.
No, but
it's crucial to mention these cops are not real. They're not real cops.
Oh,
Yeah.
really?
They have different names. I don't know why, but they do.
Well, see, this is my thing about it. That fucking bothers me.
And
So
there may be legal reasons for it. I have
Okay.
no idea why.
This is my
Like
thing.
I don't know.
Okay.
But
my thing is this: if we got movies about fucking OJ, he went to trial. People making fucking movies about him, but I can't put the 3 white dudes who got off. Okay, anyway, let me get back to this point. Like the fact is, like, if you're gonna add a fake character, no, it makes no fucking sense. We can have fucking OJ all over the
I
place.
wish I had the reason for you, and I don't.
I know exactly what the reason is. They deserve respect. They deserve to like be left alone. I mean,
Give
the
them
white
privacy.
woman.
They're
who,
old men
oh,
now.
Yeah, yeah.
Let them live in
I mean,
their
yeah.
house.
I mean, the white woman who literally got Emmett Till killed. Lily, we didn't see her until she was on her fucking deathbed, and she's like, "Oh yeah, maybe I was wrong," but we still don't say her name in the streets. Anyway, back to the point at hand, because that's some fucking bullshit. Like, if you're gonna add a fake character into this movie, then you put a cop who's like not down with this and is trying to, like, you know what I'm saying? Show me like there's a fucking level of like
But
good and
people
bad. Who's
probably
on
would
set.
freak out about that too.
I'm freaking
right?
out for the whole goddamn movie.
Yeah, you're freaking.
But don't you think a more interesting version of this movie would have been a movie that was putting blame on sort of quiet complacency in that kind of
Sure,
way?
like a banality of evil.
Putting
or what
a
have
good,
you.
well-intentioned cop who still doesn't stop anything.
Or maybe some people, if you're gonna do the trial thing, like show some of the white people who are like good, like that good man got off. You know what I mean?
yeah,
like
right.
show like
Right.
Show what it was like.
instead of
man.
just the horrors of the injustice.
Everything you guys are saying, like I can just see someone writing being no because
That's true. People would have complained
because
no
it's
matter
like
what.
if you're trying to put something somewhere,
Yeah, true.
you're already in trouble, right?
Agreed.
Like and so that's why I understand why they were like, well, the Algiers Motel incident is such an extreme example.
True.
That this is maybe why we should focus. Right, I can see how he gets himself here.
Yeah.
where he's like, right, this is like no one could.
It's a microcosm.
Like a
It
shotgun
represents
muzzle in the
everything,
face. It's
right.
like the most unambiguous thing. But then there's still ambiguity. One, so that's a problem. And then two, I think everyone just walks out of that movie being like, yeah, I'm supposed to disagree. Like, is there supposed to be anything interesting
problem
about
is it's
the
one of these-
argument that was bad?
It's one of these movies, and there's a movie I hate.
What's the movie you hate?
Don't do it.
No, I'm not gonna bring up The Help right now. I'm not gonna bring up The Help right now.
Bring up the help.
I'm not gonna bring up The Help.
Okay.
I'm gonna bring up. Man, I almost blocked it out of my mind because I hate it so much.
Hidden
Blazing
Figure.
Saddles.
Okay.
I was hoping that was the one you weren't going to bring up.
So hear me out. Hear me out. And the reason I'm bringing it up because Mel Brooks just brought up. Oh, you can't make this movie again.
Sure.
Hear me out. Hear me out.
All right.
I'm not gonna crap on it. I promise I'm not gonna crap on it. I'm gonna just say this movie, Detroit, suffers the same problem that Blazing Saddles does. Is that Blazing Saddles is trying to tell a story about something that, in all honesty, they don't know about. Like, I think the intentions for Mel Brooks and Catherine Bigelow are very righteous. I love that they attempted to do it. But the problem with that movie is that you're basically saying, look at these bad white people. I'm not like these white people. You shouldn't want to be like these white people. And what it allows is that people who aren't inherently or don't view themselves as racist to go, oh, I mean, I ain't got that many black friends, but I know I ain't like this. You know, it alleviates and makes people almost like pat themselves on the back, but I'm not this bad. And that's the problem I have with both of those movies, where it just does more damage than good.
I think where she's trying to get though is like this isn't any different from now. But I think the problem is when you watch it, you're like, but it's so specific.
Yeah.
Like, so I can't get there.
Yeah. I don't know. I did feel like the message of this movie was like white people are ruining things, right? Right? Because like even at the end of the movie, my man Algie is like, I will never sing again, and that was all he ever wanted to do.
Right.
Like I can't even sing the music that I love because
Yeah.
white people are dancing to it. That
Sure.
felt like another
Right.
thing, and I felt like there were enough white people going, save them. All right, no, let's go. Let's go. Too much paperwork or whatever.
right.
That like
Knuckleheads.
that did feel like a message of this movie, as much as like it's a horror movie for most of it. It felt like that was what they were trying to say to me.
Ben, can you get the door? I'm sorry. I ordered some delivery.
Yeah, no problem.
Who can plant a rosebud, grow petunias too, curate the best flowers and deliver them to you? Dan Candyman can.
So, wait.
Dan Candyman can.
I ordered flowers.
He cultivates
to be
the
clear.
field, and yes,
Not candy.
no, of course not.
No, you're the pro flowers guy.
I'm a flowerman. Yeah.
Okay, good. Okay.
Right.
It's just the name.
Well, it's my family name. I mean, that's just Dan Candyman. I can't control that. Your name isn't David L. Criticsman. People don't confuse
You know what? You got me.
your last
right.
name with your profession.
Okay. So
we were Candymanowski at Ellis Island, and my great grandparents they changed it to Candyman, and that's just my name.
okay. Well, anyway,
I'm a pro flower man.
right. I was looking for some flowers. It's the fall. I was hoping for maybe, a bouquet with some fall colors.
I heard you were excited about the fall.
Yeah.
This is a perfect gift.
Yeah.
I got some burnt siennas in here, some rust oranges.
Right. Some a nice
Nice
fall
flower.
palette.
Yeah. Ooh. Why don't you take a whiff of this?
Oh, that
Got a
smells
little bit of
nice.
a cold.
It's a cinnamon cider rose. A great option for
Ah.
a birthday, an anniversary, any fall occasion. Or go with me on one of the classics like 100 autumn blooms or a dozen autumn roses.
It's funny that you're singing this stuff, but I mean, that all sounds good. You got a lot of flower options, it sounds like.
I'm not allowed to sing?
No, you can sing. It's fine. All I wanted was a long-lasting bouquet
If I only had some flowers.
and maybe, in some autumn colors.
I got that.
That sounds great.
And look, let me tell you something.
Mr. Candyman,
Dan Candyman,
go right ahead.
off the record.
No, let's put it on the record.
Ben, cut the mics for a second.
No, let's put this on the record. I want this on the Ben. I want this on the record.
Oh,
Da-
okay. All right.
David, I'm a longtime Blanky.
Oh, thank you.
Big fan of the show.
Great to hear.
I know you've invoked in the past your struggles with gambling. They have a propensity to gamble.
Yeah, you're right. I didn't
Yeah,
know you
he's
were going
right
to take it
about that.
here.
Well, because I have some good news for you.
Mhm.
You cannot lose because no matter which bouquet you send, your podcast listeners
Okay.
are going to get 20% off of any Pro Flowers unique bouquets of $29 or more.
So you're saying if you use a promo code,
It's not a bet. You can't lose.
blank check.
Right.
The promo code is blank check.
Right.
You're going to get 20% off any bouquet
Any bouquet of $29.
of $29 or more.
What if you only want cinnamon cider roses? Done.
Sure. What if you want the 100 autumn blooms?
Done.
What if you want a dozen autumn roses?
Done.
That sounds good. And they last? These things last?
At least 7 days or your money back.
So they're guaranteed, staying fresh.
Yeah. And here's the other thing. I'm at your mercy because you control the delivery date.
Oh, so I can order like way in advance, and it will arrive like 2 weeks from now. If I
That's the
want.
Candyman promise.
That's cool. I actually got some Pro Flowers before. They came in a box.
Oh,
Come with a vase.
yeah.
They come with flower food.
Oh.
And it's literally you just unpack them, you put them in the vase. It comes with a vase. And I lack for vases.
I am Candyman giving you flowers now.
Put them in the water, put in the food.
Put them in that included vase.
They look incredible.
Now, let me ask you a question.
Sure, Mr. Candyman.
What if you want some Kit Kat bars?
Yeah, chocolatey treat.
Well, don't ask me.
You're the flower guy.
I'm the flower man.
You're Dan Candyman, the flower guy.
Correct.
Well, it's been nice to meet you, Mr. Candyman.
I think I'll definitely be back again soon.
Yeah, this is an interesting thing that's happening.
Yeah, David. Also, can you not get deliveries in the middle of a recording?
Yeah, David, why not get DiGiorno's for once? Right, Ben?
Yeah, Dan Candyman.
They high-fived. Yeah, well, okay. I just wanted everyone to know on this show. It's why I did it in the middle of the show.
Oh, okay.
That
Well,
they could use promo code blank check. Go to proflowers.com. Get 20% off any
Okay.
bouquet.
No, you're
$29 or more.
Come with me.
To
And you'll be-
proflowers.com.
don't- I'm sorry. Do you know my song? Do you want to sing it?
Sorry, Mr. Candyman.
Come with me and you'll be on proflowers.com on the internet.
I'm gonna close the door. Okay.
Promo code blank check. Thanks for stopping by, Mr. Candyman.
Well, he's on the other side of the door now.
Oh, Griffin, you're back.
I was here. I just didn't really feel like talking.
Oh, okay, fair enough.
So here are these two things I want to get
We
at.
got to talk about John Boyega.
Yeah, I was going to say.
yeah,
what do
yeah.
you want to say, Griffin? And then
Yeah.
we'll talk about John Boyega.
For me, the difference between this and Blazing Saddles, aside from all the other differences between Detroit and Blazing
I mean,
Saddles.
they're the same movie practically.
Right. This is an unofficial remake, right? This is sort of the 13 going on 30 to Blazing Saddles big. But I think Blazing Saddles depicts different levels of racism. And obviously it's in a different context, but I like that movie has casual racism in it. It has the people who are like, I'm not racist, but please don't mention this to anybody. And it has your like mustache twirling, like super evil guys. And in this movie, I think there's just kind of like every white character who's central is like such a horrific villain, right?
Yeah.
And then you have a lot of people who are like small parts who are just kind of like, well, I don't know, let's not talk about it.
They're not doing much about it. Maybe they're a little more like...
Right.
Hey,
I think the more
why did you
effective
do
version
that?
of this movie, and once again, she shouldn't have made this movie, but the more effective version of this movie would have been a movie that pointed more fingers at that quiet complacency. I also think there's this thing that this movie represents, which is like when you make movies about any sort of prejudice or discrimination, but you make them period pieces at a distance far enough from where you are today, it sort of alleviates a certain sense of like present day cultural guilt, because it's like, well, thank God that happened 50 years ago, but now we're woke.
But I do, as I already said, the movie's trying to be like it's not different.
But I think inherently
fails.
that's a flawed concept.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Like, I think the second you set it that far back, it does create that remove. Which the question is, should she have made this movie present day?
It's because, and the reason that it fails at that is because anyone who can see that the stuff that's happening in this film is happening today already knows that.
Yeah.
Right.
This movie is not changing one person's mind.
Yeah.
There's nobody going into this movie who is like, yo, first of all, nobody went to see this movie.
Right.
But second of all,
people, I mean, nobody went to see this. Not as many people want it as they wanted, but people went to see this movie.
some
it made
people did.
some money.
It made some money. I think it was like 40% of the audience was black.
I could probably look that up.
And the thing is, though, my thing is like, for people to really make that connection, what you need to do is take the exact language that people are using politically today and put those in the mouths of the people here in this period.
As literal.
It has to be exactly like people have to recognize like this is all about law and order. Like they have to hear all the phrases that are still being used today in the mouths of these other people. And like what I'm saying is like especially for the complacency thing, you need to have white people who were not connected to this event commenting on the event after it happens, after the audience has seen what's happened, right? And then see like a trial period where like people are talking about it and going, well, why didn't they just listen to the cops? And well, maybe if they weren't doing this, and maybe if they weren't rioting, or maybe if they, respected the flag, you know what I mean? Like
I want to see in this movie,
the
the thing I want to see is white people in this movie, a scene of white people in this movie going like, well, we don't know what happened in that room.
We don't know.
Yeah, sure.
That's
That's what you
kind
need.
of insidious sort of
the
like-
more insidious, right? Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. But what do you guys think about
John Boyega.
Okay, so Boyega is really fascinating to me because aside from the fact I think he's really fucking good in this movie, given very little to do, every time they give him a moment, he kills it. I also think he's the pathway to the most interesting thing this movie had to say, which is he is a guy who is trying to be moderate in this entire situation.
He's trying to follow the rules.
And he
quote,
learns
unquote.
conclusively that there is a time where moderation has to be put aside.
I guess so.
You know?
Is that
What
what,
do you guys think?
My thing is that it's like his character is supposed to be the black person who follows all the rules,
Right. And
Right.
still gets fucked.
and still gets screwed, so that people can go, oh man, even when they do follow all the rules, they still get messed up. But again, I don't think anyone who wasn't already thinking that way is making this connection from the movie. Yeah. The other problem is like, I mean, John Boyega was like a great actor and he did, a good job in this movie, but we don't know anything about this dude's character.
You don't get any background
At
until
all.
after
What do you guys
the
think? What do you guys think?
I find difficulty with it because I'm gonna say this before I get into this next statement because this will fuck me at one point in life. I know it when I say this. I do believe like black people are like black actors are black actors. I do. Like I don't care where you're from, you're a black actor. But this story, and I feel like this happens kind of a lot to African American men, stories that are inherently something that we in America have to deal with, we're not put in a position to be the stars and be in that spot. And I do think if it would have been like an American black dude in this, because again, John Boyega, he has nothing to do in this movie. He doesn't.
Yes.
But there's also like bruh, in this day and age, like if I'm around a cop right now, right, my body is different. I look at them different. Even if I trust you, I still have a guard up. And he didn't have that. Let me tell you why, because I don't think, aside from here in America, like we haven't been in a place where like the hatred is so steep that it still exists right now.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it should have been someone American, which sucks to say, but I do a little bit. And I also think that I would have loved to see a scene outside of the one we first see him with another black person in that hotel. Just look, I wanted to see them make eye contact and have a moment, because at any time I'm in a room and a bunch of white people, if I see any brown person, I'm looking at you and I'm giving you a nod to let you know that we are safe. You know what I'm saying? That's just period.
Yeah, and just to talk about that, like I felt like so much was happening at that moment when he first shows up that there's no time for the nod or for anything. I struggled with John Boyega in this for the same reasons you were saying, but also just because of like how his character is rendered. Like we don't really know who he is or what he's doing
until after he gets like handed the bag of shit.
I think she wants him there for that scene where he's in the interrogation room,
which is the one scene I think he does really well.
Which I think is a very well acted scene, sure, where he like it dawns on him like, oh, I
struggle with it because not knowing the details of the night, but then to hear on top of everything that the details of the night are shaky and just are like we don't have an accurate account of everything that happened. Like the timeline of when he shows up, I'm questioning that. And he's there for so long and does nothing.
Which it's a tricky character. This is probably the hardest character for Catherine Bigelow to direct in a white screen, whatever, to write, because in reality, I mean, it's said in the film, right? Like a lot of black people probably would have looked at this guy like an Uncle Tom.
Yeah.
Like, oh, you're just capitulating to white people to save yourself. But I think Catherine Bigelow wants us to relate to this character. One, because it's John Boyega, he's the biggest star in the film. Yep. But also because, she doesn't want to paint another black person in a bad light. So we see so he has this air of like he's there to help. He just doesn't know what to do.
He's noble.
He's noble, blah, blah, blah. But in reality, I'm sitting there like, what I was thinking was like, my man, if you're not going to help, you need to leave. Yeah. What are you doing here?
Yeah,
you're not helping anyone.
And he was there for so long.
He was there the whole time, though. And the thing, he is a fascinating part of this case, because you mentioned the tribunal that the Citizens Action Committee held. Like, they convicted him,
right?
Along with the 3 white cops. They sentenced him to death, which is something there was like the sentence they passed down, and he was there. He was the only one who attended. He didn't say he attended, like he wasn't like testifying, and like you say, they could have centered the whole film around this.
Also,
that's a dynamic that I'm sure she's fascinated by.
It's a problem I have with the big scene. I think his big scene again.
They mean the interrogation scene. Sure.
The interrogation. And again, I am not. I feel like this whole thing of like, oh man, people keep crapping on like British black actors. They still black. You are still black. And maybe it wasn't him. Maybe it's how he was directed. But if a black person, if I witness a crime and there's no other black people around me, I know in my heart that this now will be a problem for me. Period. If you show up to my job,
so you don't buy that he doesn't get that until then.
Way. Sure. If somebody walked in here right now and said, "Hey, Dry, you need to come with me," I instantly know something is up. I'm not coming in that thing and being really complacent.
But you're pinning that on his Britishness.
No, the thing is, and that's what I'm saying.
Because as a Brit,
that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. I think it's one of two things. It's like either that or it's how he was directed. But the thing is, there is a loss in.
I think it's probably both.
It might have been, but there's a misconnection in how American black people are treated.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say the reason that I don't buy that at the end is because of how he played the character in the beginning. Because my thing is, I would have much rather have seen. You know when he comes over with the coffee to the cops, or the National Guard, and he's like, and we're watching it. The way that it's depicted is like he is doing what he can to make sure that the stores don't get
He's got
messed
his
up.
job. He's gardening
You
his
know,
store.
he's going to be like,
Right,
he's going to make sure that he doesn't get shot.
This is also
whatever.
what I find interesting about the characters.
it's-
He's the one guy who willingly puts himself into the situation.
It feels brave and noble when he does it, instead of what it could have been, which was, what is this? He could have been cowering. We didn't have to see him save another black person. He could have just been like, "I'm glad that wasn't me." You know what I mean? Like I would have believed that a lot more.
Show me what it's like to
and
live.
then him go, and then him have, because that would be an actual arc, right? It's like the arc isn't just happening because right now it's just at the end he just goes, "Oh, I did everything right and now I'm screwed." Instead of, "Oh my God, I thought if I degraded myself and lowered myself and lowered my pride and like yes sir, and all this stuff, all the things that they want me to do is just be subservient. I'm going to be subservient this entire time, and then I'm still on the act." You know what I mean?
Can I give you
then it could have been like,
stuff?
whoa.
That's
but
what
it's
I
not
find
that.
interesting.
It's just like
It's not.
he was a really noble guy, and then the white people screwed him, and he was so brave the whole time, and then he still gets screwed. And I'm like, but was he brave the whole time?
I would love a movie where he was actually the main character.
Yes,
they
I
didn't try
thought
to
he
present
was.
him as the hero, and you actually got a sense of his psychology, especially during the Algiers Motel when he kind of just fades into the background for a long period of time. You don't understand why he's not acting.
Show me
because I
the
think
court
he's the
case.
figure who ends up representing most of what's interesting about this because he was trying to find a balance, because he was someone who was trying to build a bridge, because he wasn't someone who was stuck in this room and wasn't someone who was forced to respond. He throws himself into that situation, but you don't really understand why. You don't understand why he doesn't do more. And of course it gets pinned on him at the end. But at that point, he's not really a character. You haven't really spent any real time with him and his
At no
mind, his
point.
emotions. So it doesn't really mean anything. And when it got to that scene, I was like, fuck, why isn't the movie about him?
The thing is, it would have been so much better if this movie started with him, I don't know, either on giving his statement like on trial, or if he's an old man and he's like recounting everything that had to happen. Show me like who he was before that
Saving
night.
Private Ryan.
Yeah, give me something. Show me like how he got to this point and like how screwed it was, and then also again like how the black community treated him. I mean, he got death threats after this.
Yeah, he did.
It should be a biopic
he got
about
death
this
threat. I mean,
one
they
guy.
convicted
But I think the
Yeah.
problem is this guy's not selling you his life rights.
Sure.
He doesn't want a movie made about him, and his role is so murky. I like a lot of people's role, like because no one
knows.
The testimony is like little bits and pieces, and like you try and put it all together.
Maybe
Figure.
don't make the movie. If
Well,
you don't
all
know
right.
this
I mean,
story.
they made the movie.
I'm not saying this to you,
Yeah,
David. I'm
I
saying this
know.
to Catherine
Right.
Bigelow.
I
The
know,
whole-
but
to me, the scene that really messes it up is that the first time we see him really is him doing a heroic act. So we're set up to believe this dude is a hero and a hero who fails, but supposed to be a hero anyway. He goes to the house because he wants to make sure that the white people don't kill the black people, but it happens.
Right.
But he's there. But he's
And he's
ostensibly there.
But he is powerless, right?
He's powerless.
He is,
but
yeah.
Totally, he's powerless. But what I'm saying is, if he's just I just wish the movie like made an interpretation of why he's doing this, because because the fact of the matter is all the black people in here were powerless. So like the one person who could have a little bit of agency, you also just made power. Like he had no agency in the whole film, which maybe that's how it happened in real life. But part of me is like, the white people didn't ask him to come.
But
You know what I mean?
But,
so like
what you were saying about Will
interesting.
Poulter being the main character, though. I mean, like this is kind of a movie about everyone's robbed of their agency, and so it's hard to know like who am I attaching myself to here, right?
Because even his agency is innately he's very, very racist.
Yeah.
Which I'm not saying I want
Will
some
Poulter?
origin scene where he falls into a vat of toxic racism, but it's just
would've
like
been
the
good.
movie just
Yeah.
presents him as being like this guy just is fucking
Oh,
racist.
the
is an
racism
awful
power
force for
plant
evil in the
exploded,
world.
and the fumes
Right.
spread over the
Also,
city.
he
Like
got
he was
bit.
too good because he
Yeah.
didn't want to kill anybody. He was like,
Right,
no, we're
like,
playing the game. It's a game. He's a dummy.
His
Right.
racism.
But I mean, the movie's not saying that's like that the other guy's worse. It's just saying the
Yeah.
other guy's a fucking idiot.
No, but what I'm saying is,
Right.
but no, the problem to me is that the movie and him saying, "How could you do that?" is just a game.
Sure.
Almost wiped the hands of some of the fucked up shit that the main racist guy did, because it's like it's
did.
what he's
I
saying.
didn't
It's like
feel-
because to me
yeah,
what it's
I
saying
didn't
is
feel that.
I
I just
don't
didn't
think
feel
so.
that.
Hear me out. Because what I
Yeah.
because to me what it simply felt like is like, oh, I am bad, but I am not so bad and so racist that I'm just in here just killing
But
black
that's
people
what
willy-nilly.
he thinks.
Right.
Like,
That's
That's
how I saw
that's what I'm
it.
saying.
I saw it as like he thought that he wasn't doing
Right.
wrong. But
He's
that didn't-
equivocating.
But that didn't
But
he killed
expunge
two
what he
people
was
already.
doing.
But
Yeah.
no.
Yeah,
what I'm
yeah,
saying is, but that level of me getting to understand he thinks that way. I now know more about his psyche
Sure, right,
than anyone else's psyche in the whole movie, and
Yeah.
that's a problem.
Because everyone else's
Right.
psyche is
Yeah.
they're really frightened
Yeah,
because
that's
they're
it.
being lined up against
That's
the
it.
wall.
Like,
Right.
I mean, especially at the dude, the fact that I literally there were so many questions I wanted to ask that I didn't because there's no way I was going to. But one of the questions I wanted to ask was like, Anthony, you've been in
You were in the Hurt
you've
Locker?
been in the event like you've been
Collaborating
in
with-
like 3 Marvel movies.
Why,
Yeah.
why are you here?
You've been in the Hurt Locker.
Yeah.
What? Your role is nothing in this movie.
Nothing.
Why are you in this movie? How did you say yes
It
to
has
that?
to be
but-
their existing relationship,
Of
right?
course,
She's
but
like, I
like-
have this role. He's a veteran, so I need someone who's got like presence and like.
So why did she
Character is
get?
just like-
I would feel. I would be like, if she. I would be like, Catherine. I know we're tight, but
when she announced the cast,
also, but and then when like the ad roll out and like all of the press happened,
A lot of
my
Mackie.
man, I did not know Anthony Mackie was in this movie until he showed up on screen.
Oh, really?
So, no, I didn't
same-
know that
same
at
here.
all.
It was that
Same
one
here.
poster of the
There's
four
the one
heads.
poster where he's one
I-
of the
Oh.
four.
where
heads.
it's
I never saw that
Boyega,
poster.
Mackie, Algie Smith,
Hannah
and
Murray.
Will Poulter.
Okay.
Okay,
Yeah.
but the trailer that I saw, and like anything that I knew going into this movie was that John Boyega was in it, Will Poulter was in it, and it was like, you know, this hold up at the a hotel. But also, I thought it was a lot about the Detroit riots more so
Because
than it
it's-
was.
I
Call
thought
it
it was
Detroit.
about. I
Right.
thought it was about the
But-
Detroit riot.
But
Okay.
I just feel like Anthony Mackie wasn't. I mean, maybe he was on that poster, but
This
I feel,
poster is the one I'm talking about.
Yeah, it's like one. His
Oh,
head.
wow.
Is
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
one of the
But,
heads, yeah.
but if
Oh,
you're
wow.
saying that they,
but that's not the main poster that they
Well, the
used.
other
the other one
posters
that's
that
like-
sort of
it's a street
detached
shot.
one. Here, I'll
That's the
find
one I
it.
saw.
but Bray, if you said before that
Where
they
it's like
like
this.
didn't have
Yeah, that one. Yeah.
they didn't have like the full, they didn't know the full.
They didn't know. You're right.
They didn't
he
know
might not have
everything.
known.
Like
he might
I-
not have known.
Like I would say yes to that. That is a relationship thing. It's like, oh yeah, oh it's Catherine. Okay, all right, great. Like, oh, it has a message. Okay, all right.
They thought it was
You know
an
what I
Oscar
mean?
movie.
Like all of that together, I would be like, I would say yes to that.
Literally no character.
So here's a question that I have no answer to. Okay, this is my question for you guys, right?
Yeah.
I'm putting aside whether or not she should have made the movie, and just looking at her intentions of what she wanted to try to get across, trying to say like this is what's going on now, place you in the situation, make you understand the terror, the powerlessness, you know, that distrust of authority, all that sort of stuff. Do you think this movie would have been more effective had she created a story out of whole cloth or taken a less publicized but more recent incident?
Sure. Like made a contemporary film.
Right,
rather
made a
than-
contemporary
yeah.
film and
Yeah.
just said,
I mean, the
I'm
second
making
one
a horror
is
movie.
is a bit of a that's a tough thing.
It's
to
a
do, where
tough thing. I don't know if
entirely
there's a story
fictional.
that,
Yeah.
but I wonder if the better thing to do is make a movie that's just about this type of situation.
Yeah.
And all these things that we keep on getting to where, well, I guess the character can't do that because we don't know what they did in real life. Or I guess the character has to do this because that's what they did in real life. But we still have these big lingering questions of why, which the movie's never able to answer.
Yeah.
Just make a movie that is just like this fucking horrifying, like,
I'll say
standoff, you know?
Yeah, I'll say this: that if the sole intention was to make the audience feel like they were reliving themselves an experience of police brutality, I felt that for sure.
Right.
That being said, if that's the only thing that you're going to do, because that's really for me the only thing that was done effectively. It is most of the movie.
Yeah.
But for me, it was like everything else wasn't done effectively.
What do you get to the court case?
The problem is that
So-
it's not all the movie.
but
And
it-
the problem,
but
I think
it's
it's
not all the
summed
movie.
up
Yeah.
by John Krasinski just walking in.
John
just
Krasinski.
shattering.
Oh my God, we haven't talked about John Krasinski.
With
Oh,
half an hour to
man.
go, where you're like, oh shit, John Krasinski is just showing up. That means he's going to have like a whole role.
Right, they're not giving
We're
him
not
two lines. We're going to have a
done.
bunch of
Like,
courtroom
And he's
scenes.
shattering everybody.
Right.
Oh
and,
man,
and I guess the reason that she added that was for people to
she wants it to be like they got off, right?
Yes,
You
she
know,
wants
she
people
wants
to feel
that
the injustice so that they feel the
Yes.
injustice today. But my thing is, if that's the real goal, if the real goal is to change the hearts and minds of people who are not already advocating for this stuff, then you have to do it in a much more deliberate and obvious way than was done in this film, because for me, like you were saying, because it's a period film, I don't think people who don't understand what's happening today are taking this incident and going, I think I can
just
hear
watch it
them.
and go, yeah,
I can
that
hear
sure
them
was
right now.
bad. That
I can hear them
was
right now
bad
saying,
past tense.
"Did you see the Eric Gardner video? It has nothing to do like that. Eric Gardner was resisting. Did you see the other video? Did you see the video of Philando Castile? Those people were resisting. Oh yes, the boy in Ohio, like that was tragic. But what can you do? He had a toy gun. They ran up, like they came on him. They saw the gun. They shot him. What do you want them to do? It happened in a split second.
It's totally different.
And all the
They'll
things
say
today,
it's totally different.
And the reality is, it is true.
Totally
it is different
Right,
because
it is totally
because
different.
the stuff that happens today, usually at least the high profile incidents that we have videos of, you know what I mean? Those incidents are usually because like these cops are making these split second decisions,
Right.
Because they're so fearful for their own life without even thinking about the life of the person that they
Right. And
that
they've been
they're arrested.
empowered in such an intense
in such
way.
a way that it's like, hey, if you make a mistake, it's cool. We all got your back because we know you were just trying to do your best. Whereas these characters, these cops, we see in the beginning them run a black man down, shoot him in the back. So we know that they don't have the best intentions at heart. So when they see this incident, they're like, yeah, but these cops are different because they weren't fearful of their life. They were just terrorizing them because they were on a power trip. The National Guard knew it. That's why they left.
Right.
And you know what I mean?
And the
It's
guy
like
was
it's such
like,
a
why would
completely
someone do
different
this?
thing that the main thing she was trying to do. I'm like, it doesn't work with this movie
At all.
Like it doesn't work with this incident.
But it also doesn't work because but this is a dramatization of what happened. Like they had control. They could have made different decisions. Like the fact that this begins with like basically everything happens because Jason Mitchell, he says these words, they'll never know who's doing this. So when they go in and there are 5 people in there, it could be any one of them, right? Like, and then they terrorize them and it's a horror movie, but it could be any one of them to them. So like,
there's the grain of like
of
probable
the fact
cause
that it
or
weirdly gives
whatever
him
you would receive.
justification.
yes,
Sure,
because
sure,
he
Yes.
shoots so many times
Right.
that like,
Right.
yeah, somebody in that house did that. Somebody in that hotel did that thing.
Which gets
right?
back to my
Yeah.
Hellraiser analogy. It's like, well, you called out Pinhead. What do you expect?
John's got to
Yeah.
go. Let's say bye to
Yeah.
John.
I gotta go.
See you, man.
Right.
Gerard, go off, baby.
Well, now, before you leave, this movie gets nothing, right?
Yeah, what do you get? Like, we had to give it. we had
Oh,
to
in
give this
terms
help
of
the cause.
the
Yeah, this is a crossover
no, I
episode.
still would give it a white palm.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
would? I would give it
Chris
nothing.
Chalk's in it. Amari Cheatham's in it.
It still gave. I
Russell
mean, it
G.
gave
Jones
my
in
man.
it.
Of like getting
It gave my
people
man.
jobs.
It put
Yeah.
my man on the map. He's gonna get some roles off of this.
Yeah, it's true.
I don't like the movie,
White
but I would
palm
still
for
give it
sure.
a white palm.
I give it nothing.
What was the last thing? Oh, I mean, Krasinski. Anyway,
That haircut.
I don't know.
Oh,
I will
that
say this.
haircut.
I'll say this. After I watched this movie, I was like, I am interested why she chose this, but I guess it was because of this police brutality thing. But
And I think
there
it's
are
also-
so many horrible things that are on a much larger scale that like white people have done to black people in this country that I'm just like, it's so interesting the ones that like people pick.
Bring out.
You know what I mean? Because it's also black people who don't get to pick it. So
Yeah.
I'm just, I guess what I'm saying, like, it's really interesting to be like the ones that like white filmmakers attach themselves to. That I'm just like, oh, that one. I'm like, I have a bunch of stories. By the way, you know, there was a whole town in Oklahoma that was
don't
a
bring up Black Wall Street.
striving black town that just raped,
Yo,
like
someone should do a movie on
people
Black
just
Wall Street.
destroyed that entire town. All right. Anyway, that's all I got to say. Bye.
Hey, yo,
Thank you, Bray.
someone should. All right, this is my
Bye,
thing.
John.
I theorize that this movie, I think that you could make this movie into a good movie. I think this was, in theory, a movie that she should have done. I think one simple change would have made this movie better.
What's
it's
your
like
one change?
not have the racist white dude be the lead.
I agree.
Like, because to me, it's like, again, I'm
Have them be more anonymous, more like these like
just-
people
yeah.
just come
You just-
in
you
and
just
you
don't
have no
see
idea
them.
who these
You
people
just want
are.
them to
right.
be like boogeymen.
Yeah,
You want them to just
that's
be like,
it. That is it.
Because
And the thing
Poulter's
is-
looks like a
Yeah,
boogeyman.
but it's,
He's a
but it's so tricky
weird-looking guy.
because I feel like, you know, my family's from the South and I bring this up a lot where it's like, you know, if you watch the news, and this goes for both like CNN, MSNBC, like Fox, all these networks, they make it seem like there's such a crazy divide. And most of the time it's because you don't realize that a lot of time in these small towns, people don't interact with one another.
Right.
So like we don't get to see, like when I go visit my family, like there's black, they're white, but like they're together. So like they like those groups don't like people in New York or California because they're taking all the jobs and money. So like people don't know that they actually are united. Like black and white people, we get the shit together. Like we're in it together.
You talked about that in your Beast of Southern
Yeah,
Wild
it's just
episode,
like
which was like really
we're all the same thing.
Right, right.
So to me, if you feel the need to help people understand why these atrocities are happening to African Americans, paint them as this sounds so dumb, but make us seem, because we are, as humanistic as possible. Sure. Show us what our families, show them in love. Show that guy who eventually dies, like show him really like have a moment with that white girl. Like show him like we have these loving moments. We are real people, so that when atrocities do happen to us, it has more weight to it. We're not just victims. You can feel sorry. You can feel like, oh my God, I would never want this to happen again. I wouldn't know to look out for it. I won't be able to sit there and say, oh, I'm not like that.
Sure.
You know?
My thought I had watching it was I felt like Boyega was the character that was sort of would have been the smartest one to pin like the real kind of narrative story on, right? And make it from his perspective. I think you shouldn't know anything about the fucking cops.
I agree.
I think they should just be, like forces of evil. But I also, I had this thought at one point because I was just playing this game of like, okay, how would I fix this? Would this work? Would this work? What are the ways to refocus or restructure this movie? And this one thought I had was if you started the movie with the police walking through the door, right? Here they are at the Algiers Motel. Here we have a group of people lined up against a wall. Here we have a group of people with guns. And you just do this Catherine Bigelow, like edgy or C, white knuckle fucking terror thing. But the movie is no context prior to that. The story ends when they leave that room, but you flash out of that to each
to their lives.
Exactly.
Show me their lives.
Yeah, right? And you just go like, here's a story that's going to be reduced to a bunch of victims and a bunch of perpetrators. But let's flash out of this to give you senses of just their everyday fucking
how they got here.
Because the movie doesn't do that at all.
No,
and the one narrative they do.
No, it doesn't not do that at all. It does that for some characters.
I think they do it with the Algie Smith character, but it's such
a
a big swing of a narrative of like, this is what made him give up music.
Right, sure.
We
didn't even know he was like
one specific prism,
Bol
which
wrote
is just his
whole
career.
article. You can read it about how he knows, he met that guy and that was what connected him to the story. You can find it on, I think it was on New York Magazine or whatever.
One quick thing about that character is that, they show him as like, I don't even think they make him honorable until the end of this movie. Because when you first see him, his friend seems like the honorable one. Because he's like, I gotta get bread. I have to get bread, right? Then all of a sudden, the riot is happening. They need to get out. He has his moment of song and dance, which is great, which is beautiful.
Sure.
The next moment they get out of here, they go back. He's kind of super selfish again. You see Lattimore like being nice to him. And the moment those white girls show up, he instantly becomes a black predator. He literally becomes at that point the thing that they show in Birth of a Nation. The thing of like, oh, he sees a white woman. Oh, he's gotta go. Like he instantly goes into that moment. Even so much so when they go to that other house where everything goes down at, he just starts making out with her. Like legit. And that's supposed to be the guy I feel like you're
in a room of like 20 other people without really even talking to her that much.
Like you gave him that kind of thing where like you almost made him more of a villain than this cop who shot somebody in the back because they ran away from stealing food.
Yeah.
I don't know, guys.
I'm just going to say something controversial real quick because I feel like I have to say it. But I don't hate that they went into Will Poulter's story in the way that they did.
I agree.
I really don't. And here's why. He's a monster. Yeah. And I really think that the movie paints him as a monster. Yeah. And I think that the more we hear the reasons that he's doing these things, the more he seems like a monster. I think the crime.
Yeah,
of
I think
the movie,
if you make these characters anonymous, then you can more easily dismiss them.
Yes, and the crime of this movie is that we see him in his most monstrous, after everything that he's done, shoot Jacob Lattimore in cold blood,
which I find to be the most effective scene in the movie.
We have no idea who Jacob Lattimore
is, which sucks.
And that is the crime. It's not that they went into his backstory and we got to see him like thinking that like because we're not killing them, he's doing the right thing. No, he's evil. And then after all of this, he does his best to just get off. So like he is a villain, and he is more of a villain because they didn't
at the end.
Exactly. Because they didn't just make him like a faceless sort of like villain character throughout. Like the going into that was good, but
you want every other character to have that level of detail, or
it's
just unbalanced.
It's very unbalanced.
Yes,
you're right.
I want to stick up for John Boyega as the Brit in the room.
Sorry,
no, I know. I'm just sorry. I just want to because I can't. Obviously, I grew up in Britain, where police brutality is a big issue too. I mean, but I'm not really the one who could talk about it. But he has talked about it. It's interesting hearing him talk about it. talked about the Rashad Charles incident, which is like a really recent, terrible incident where a black kid in London was restrained for no reason and died. You know, like the same shit does kind of happen. The difference is UK cops don't have guns. And so that obviously that changes the scenario.
This is my thing.
And obviously the American, it's very particular.
It's a very
experience.
tough conversation because, of course, everyone knows this summer this whole thing happened with Sam Jackson, and I agree. Black people all over the world deal with the same thing.
Right.
It's just that for some reason, when it comes to American Hollywood movies, we are never given a chance.
I think that. Right. I think that's interesting to point out. The other weird thing is Will Poulter's also British. The two ostensible leads of this movie are British, which is.
I was thinking about that too, and I was like, are they doing that to sort of? Are we supposed to now distance ourselves?
I assume she just thought like these are good actors. I want to use them, but like it is a little weird that the two main characters are played by British actors. I don't know.
It is strange.
Especially because Will Poulter's doing that very affected accent, he's doing
this and I want to make sure I clarify because I feel like we get famous this episode.
this episode.
No. I mean I've got a couple, but I'm trying to clarify all the ones, but I know it's going to come back to get me.
Don't worry,
Fox
Griffin
News
does the
plays
same thing on our podcast.
I do it every single episode.
But I feel like there is a thing where it's like there are certain things that I think that it would be different if we just had a chance. So we saw what it would be like if a black guy got to play a certain part that is innately something that we deal with every day.
Well, and look,
I'm just curious to know what it would look like.
And I think that it was a mistake to only give pieces of the script or have actors have your biggest source of black input in the movie not have an understanding of what the
larger thing they were saying. Yeah.
Because I feel like there would have been pushback, there would have been, character input, all kinds of stuff that we didn't get.
But I feel like the three of us are actors, right? And
you famous though. Famous though.
The three of us are actors, but you're famous.
You famous though.
Come on.
You're in my subway station.
Yeah.
Every day I get
you
out.
at the airport.
Look,
I was at the Toronto Film Festival.
He went flush.
At the Toronto Film Festival in the Scotiabank, where we see all the movies, they play 3 trailers on a loop. It was like Flatliners, The Tick. There was a third one. So I watched you over and over again.
Griffin's face is like, this is not what I
he's
wanted
not
to do.
into this. He is not
the opposite of what
I wanted. Go ahead. Sorry.
Okay, let me restate, okay? Draw, James. The three of us are the 3 finest actors of our generation. Right?
I love this.
This is known. This is known. We are the 3 finest actors of our generation.
I love this.
Yep.
You want to be able to play parts that are outside of you. You want to be able to get the chance to play circumstances that are different than what you have lived through. But I also think sometimes you see performances where you're just like, wow, that is such a specific moment that clearly could only be realized by someone who has felt that, has lived through that. Things that are very, very, and I think you put it so well, that shift you feel in physical tension when a cop's around, right?
Yeah.
That's something that I think is just, it's a tiny, innate behavioral moment that would speak volumes if you saw that depicted on screen. And that's like, not to get lofty about it, but the power of movies where you're able to put a microscope on these little things and make other people understand them for the first time. And there are things where it's like, look, you can't say that a British person can never play an American person, this or that. But for certain
no one's saying that. I want to be clear. I just wanted to at least point out Boyega's talked about it. He's acknowledged it.
Thank you. Please, I'm not saying it. Thank you.
But it is, certainly with certain stories, and certainly the bigger conversation is just, as you said, like, why do Americans never get to tell those stories? Like, that's the biggest thing. And you want to see people get those chances.
We should wrap up. I got 2 things I want to do just because of time.
That was me helping you.
Thank you. And I thank you for it.
Did you watch the movie?
I thank you so much.
We've had 5 people in the studio. Obviously, Ben hasn't really. But Ben, did you even see the movie?
No.
Yeah.
Cool. Just wanted to get that in there.
We started this miniseries, and Ben was like, Detroit, it's only going to be playing for like another week. It's bombed really
Detroit
hard.
vanished from theaters
very
pretty
fast.
Very quick.
And we were like, definitively, Ben,
we were like, Ben, don't
need to see
have
this.
to rush.
In the room and hearing you guys talk about it, I'm really glad because it sounds like everyone's really angry.
You would have been furious.
Yeah, I mean,
I want to play the box office game. That's the other thing.
Okay.
Ooh.
Yeah.
So this, if you guys want to join in on this, because we
we
rarely
it's
do
pretty
this
recent. Pretty recent.
Yeah.
Talking in limited release, it was July 28th. Should we do the limited?
Let's do the wide. Let's do the wide weekend.
Okay, so the wide weekend, is the next weekend. That's when it expands to 3,000 theaters.
Yeah.
Wow.
Which is crazy.
And let's
after
also-
1 week in like 20 theaters.
The other crazy thing about this movie is Annapurna had just been a production company, and
Yeah,
this was their
and
first
this is
attempt
them
at
being like, we are a
releasing.
studio.
Being a studio,
This movie
advertising
cost
the movie themselves, releasing it themselves.
$34 million to make. It grossed 16. I guess it's still technically in theaters, but I mean, that's where
Wait,
it is.
domestically, it's only 16?
Domestically, 16 has not been released outside of the country yet.
Wow, really?
Yeah. Well, releasing this movie in August was bold. This is not a
Yes.
summer movie
No.
per
Yeah,
se.
I thought they would have made it like an Oscar. I thought they went for.
They were though. That's why it's so weird that they released it in August.
Yeah.
Like usually this is a movie, right? You release this in like October, November.
Yeah.
You know, Oscar season, you're trying to get buzz, you know,
you
all
do
that
it.
crap. Maybe you expand it slowly. Instead, 1 week limited release, then wide release.
Right, and they talked about it like we're trying to have our cake and eat it too. We think this can be a big box office play that then will last through the Oscar
And there's
season.
something admirable about that. Like, especially
it
if this is a
worked,
better movie, but like, you know, like being like, no, we're not going to play the little sort of like, oh no, it's a prestige movie. Like, this is a movie everyone should see, so we're going to put it everywhere, right? Like, there is something to admire about it, but it didn't work for this movie.
Absolutely not.
It opens, so it expands to number 8. So it's not in the top 5.
Wow.
So we're going to guess the top 5. That's the box office game.
And makes 7
snap.
opening weekend?
It makes $7.1 million, yeah,
Okay.
in its wide weekend. All right.
Top
And this
five.
is in August.
This is August 4th, 2017. Number 1 is a movie starring an actor of color.
I just want to point out one more thing. August this year was like
the
notoriously
worst August
the deadest
ever.
month.
Yeah.
Like they didn't
don't
have
remember.
competition. If this movie was clicking, this
It was
movie would have
bad.
played,
It
and
was
it made
bad.
2 times its opening weekend, essentially, a little over 2.
Wait,
Right,
August. What people of color? in
Number
movies?
1 is it's a new movie. It stars an actor of color. I saw it. I had a good time.
Is
it's
it
not
the
good.
Bodyguard? The Bodyguards.
It's
Hitman's
not the
Bodyguard.
Hitman's Bodyguard, which
no.
comes
It's
out
a
maybe a
failed
week or 2
franchise,
later.
right?
It's a franchise
It's
play.
The
It's
Dark
sort of
Tower.
a genre movie. It's the Dark Tower.
Dark Tower.
19
almost said that. I'm mad I
19.1
didn't.
million.
Okay.
I'll let you take
Starring-
the next one, James.
Let's play. Come on.
Let's play.
He's excited.
Now I'm ready.
Starring Idris Elba.
James has removed his gloves.
I know, right?
Did you guys see The Dark Tower? Did you do an episode
We
of The Dark
did.
Tower?
We
Do
did.
an
The Dark
episode.
Tower. The Dark Tower. I
You
was
like
an
the books.
avid reader of the books.
I like the books too.
So again, but I knew going into it that it just wasn't the lead of that movie. I knew it was that little boy.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I mean that's.
I
not
knew
my
from the
favorite
trailer.
thing
Like,
about
that little boy. That little boy had every talking line in the trailer.
I
think
wish it
just
ended
said,
in that movie as it does for the little boy in
the
the
book?
first Dark Tower book.
Yep.
I think
That
that would
little
have
boy
been.
Spoiler alert! That little boy should be.
But I mean, I can see a studio being like,
we gotta keep this child.
Where the kid just dies and he just keeps going.
Yeah, it just leaves him. He just died. He just walks away.
Anyway, number 2 is kind of the out of the box hit of the summer that is still probably the best picture frontrunner.
Dunkirk.
Dunkirk.
Okay.
I haven't seen it. Is it good? Is it good?
It's good and it's
It's
worth
really
seeing in
good.
a theater for sure.
I
You know,
wanna
it's
see
a
it.
big-
I haven't
Kirk. Okay.
I got
What do you got? What do you, James? What do you think?
No, I didn't see it.
Oh, you didn't see it. Okay. I thought I was looking for.
No,
Opinions.
I have no opinion.
It's a
about
good
that.
movie. It's a good
I
movie.
wanna
It's a good movie.
Nice trailers.
Nice trailer.
Yeah, it is a good trailer.
Great ad campaign.
Good ad campaign. Number 3 is just another huge front runner for Best Picture, animated film,
Okay, you're saying this facetiously.
I'm saying it
it's not Despicable Me
facetiously.
3.
Oh no, it's
No.
emojis.
the Emoji
Emoji movie. One of the worst
the
review movies
Emoji
ever.
movie, which was, to America's credit, not really a big hit.
Yeah.
84 million.
It did okay.
It
The fact
covered
that
its
$84 million?
budget.
yeah.
The fact it made 84 million is
I know.
insane.
Right,
But
but
it's
they
the
were
kids,
thinking.
though.
I mean, put
Thank
it this
God it didn't make 200 million.
Put it
though. That's
this
my
way.
thing. I'm like, it was bad, but it could have been a lot worse.
It underperformed relative to the Angry Birds movie.
Sure.
Like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
True.
they wanted more from this movie.
Angry Birds crossed 100.
Yeah.
Like
yeah.
it flew past it. It loaded up in its slingshot
Wow, I
and it
see what
flew past 100.
Wow, you
Sorry,
and John. You and John.
Angry
You and John.
Birds made 107. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Number 4 is definitely one of the breakout hits of the summer, also starring actors of color. Great movie.
Oh, Girls Trip.
Girls Trip.
Okay.
Girls Trip.
Girls Trip. The most profitable movie of 2017, I would
Girls
imagine.
Trip, which
Yeah.
is
Girls
a
Trip.
movie that cost $19 million to make, has made 114 domestic.
How much Get Out made a lot of money too? Because
Get Out made a
Oh,
ton
you
of
know
money.
what? You're right. Get
Get
Out
Out-
is one of the
Get
most.
Out only cost like $5 million.
Get
to
Out
make.
cost
So-
less than 5 and it made 175 domestic.
Blumhouse this year has
That's
done
correct.
crazy
4.5.
numbers.
Insane. You're right. Not only is Get Out the most profitable movie of the year, Get Out is like one of the 5 most profitable movies
For
in
sure.
history.
For sure.
Split did very well.
Yeah,
Split was
Split
cost,
did really well.
like,
Those
he
are
made-
2 Universal movies that cost nothing to
Nothing.
make. Yeah,
Those
yeah,
two
yeah.
Nothing.
movies combined cost under $10 million and made over $500 million.
Bloomfield had
Wow.
a great year this
He
year.
should make fucking every movie. Everyone should
Bloomfield
let
had
him
a
make
great year.
every movie.
Bloom had a great year.
He's kind of a character in Home Again. Jason Blum.
Really?
I mean, like,
is he?
a character that's obviously supposed to be him. I
Not the
think.
main young kid, is it?
No.
Okay.
The
Wait, is he
producer they're
actually
working
in
with.
it?
No.
Oh,
But
but
it's just
someone based
obvious
on
this
him.
character is
You know,
based
Home Again's
on
one of
him.
those movies where it's about a struggling screenwriter,
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
and it's like clearly the woman writing her life 10 years earlier.
Every time we
I
pitch
don't know about
movies,
10 years older. She's 29 years old.
Oh, really?
Really?
Yeah, man.
So then why is it? Okay.
Every
Oh.
time we pitch movies or shows and we have Hollywood in it, they tell us no one cares about Hollywood movies. And then we're like, what about these movies? And they're like, can y'all do that black thing for a whole season? And I'm like, well, okay. Well, yes. How many times has that happened?
Entourage, 7 seasons.
I'm like, okay. All right. So I let me put my head
7
down every
seasons
time.
of
Extras, made it 2-3 seasons. Sorry, go ahead.
Home Again.
Number 5.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also starring an actor of color.
Wow.
It's a thriller. I think it was made like a while ago. Finally came out.
Is it Kidnap with Halle
It's
Berry?
Kidnap.
Oh, wow.
Made
That's a movie that already doesn't exist.
Wow.
Considering that movie basically doesn't exist
Yeah.
and got terrible reviews.
Was supposed to be released 3 years earlier.
Came
Like there
out.
were
Was
posters
it?
and everything. That was a
Yeah.
relativity bankruptcy movie.
Yeah.
Wow.
Still
Relativity
made
went
$30
under.
million on a
Yeah.
$20 million budget.
But we
It'll
already
probably-
forgot it existed.
Oh, people rent it. I don't know.
Yeah.
Kidnap.
Is that
Someone
like
gets
is that like
kidnapped.
her Taken? Is she like
Exactly.
there like
Yeah.
fighting people?
And they made it right after Taken. It took this long to come out.
What? You should have took the Taken.
Yeah.
Going to Taken with
Because she hadn't been in a movie since X-Men Days of Future Past,
Wow.
which she's barely in.
Yeah.
So like her
Wow.
last like starring role is The Call from 2013,
which is the same movie.
which is
Yeah,
a
pretty
pretty
much.
similar movie. And then
Right,
she
but
is
she-
in Kingsman this year,
which
she's-
I just saw it 2 days ago. I mean, she's in it.
she's in it.
She's not giving much.
she's
to do.
Ginger
not-
Ale.
Ginger Ale is kind of in it.
She's
Wait.
behind the desk.
You know what? Maybe in the sequel she may have something to do if she is in the
Right.
sequel.
Which Kingsman 2 does a
probably-
lot of that. Like, well, this will actually let
Yeah.
them do something in the next
well,
movie.
do you see
Jeff
also
Bridges will actually
they
do something
straight
in the
up
next one.
admitted they were like, yeah, Channing Tatum was going to be the Pedro Pascal
Right.
role, and
Clearly,
then he was busy.
that role is supposed to be
Clearly.
one
So
guy.
we just had to put
Clearly.
him on ice.
Right. They wrote that to be one character,
Right.
and then he was like, "Oh, I booked something else, a vacation with my
Sorry,
family.
guys. Yeah.
Can you
I
put
mean, that
me
makes
literally
sense.
on ice?
Yeah.
for the majority
He's
of
on
this
ice.
film. Yeah,
That makes
So that's the
total
top
sense.
5. That's the
Yeah.
top 5.
Guys,
it's
you know
6
what?
o'clock. I think
Thanks
we
for
gotta,
that. I
we
will
gotta
say
wrap
this
it up.
though. I don't listen to podcasts. You guys are the only ones I listen to. So you should feel good about that.
That's
Thank you
great.
And
very
listen,
much.
I literally listen to no other ones because they usually annoy the hell out of me.
Uh,
Like, legit. Even though we have our own. But
yeah.
I
Oh,
usually
yeah.
never listen because I'm like,
You
people
listen to your
talk
own
over each other.
podcast?
Yeah.
No,
I don't like hearing my voice.
I hate my voice.
I only listen to it when people get offended.
Specifically,
with
You
something
guys
you
are
have
on
a
a
problem
great
with like the
podcast.
resonance of your voice.
Of
It's not
my
even
voice.
what you say.
Right,
You
yeah,
just
no, I
you
hate-
dislike the tonality of your own voice.
Exactly.
I will
See,
go
I
back.
think you got a great
yeah.
voice.
I will go back if someone
Thank
says like you offended me. I will go back and listen to it, and I'm
Mhm.
like, all right, you know what? Maybe this was out of line, or like I will try to. But if people call me out all the time, so I will go back and like.
I do the same thing. I mean, I don't get called out. I get a lot of hate, just general hate. But then I go back and
Internet's
listen
so
to it,
great.
and
Right?
I'm in pain for a lot of reasons. They don't like what I'm saying, and I don't like how I'm saying it.
So you want to argue with them?
Yeah.
You're like, I also dislike
Yeah, you're like,
listening to me,
this
but
is
for
a can of
different
worms.
reasons. If you wrote out what I'm saying, I would agree with it.
I would agree with that.
I would
but
stand
then-
behind that.
Griffin, can I ask you a question though before I
Yeah,
leave?
please.
Now that you're famous,
Yeah,
do you-
what's
no,
up?
this is like legit question.
Sure.
I think
We're
about
gonna
this all
wrap
the
up here. We haven't even
Yeah.
done our Bigelow rankings though.
We'll
Oh,
do that. Let's
no.
do that on our family episode.
Okay.
Yeah.
time. I'm sorry. No, we can write. This,
No,
no,
but
we,
you're right. I think because we'll
I
just do it
think,
later.
yeah.
That'd be real. Do you like having a podcast? You guys critique movies and stuff. Do you ever feel like you like can't
It's
say certain
very bizarre.
things?
It's
or-
very bizarre. I mean, I've told this story before, but you know, I knew Ben because we did a podcast for the Chris Gethard show, like a recap podcast, and that went on for a couple years, and then we stopped doing it. And I really wanted to do another podcast, and I was talking to my agents about it, and they were like, "Well, you shouldn't do a podcast about movies because you're going to share all your opinions, and it would probably be bad. Like that's clearly the thing you have the most to say about, but it would probably be bad for your career." And then I started doing this, and when I started doing the show, I like had gotten fired off of Mulaney. I was like being given nothing to do on Vinyl, which seemed like a sinking ship, and I was like, "Yeah, this might not be going anywhere." I might just double
Who gives
down
a
on
shit?
like
Right.
stand up
Yeah.
and doing this podcast and not try to really be like getting hired by big productions. So who gives a shit? And then this podcast has been like charting the arc of me actually getting like some modicum of like a
Oh,
career
you're an
under
actor.
my feet. But I've tried to not like pull punches in that way.
Mhm.
The way I always justify it, and I feel like I certainly feel this kinship with you because I hear you say stuff on your podcast where I'm like, I love that he's not holding back,
Right.
despite the fact that he's trying to work in this industry, which is my basic philosophy. But it's like, if you really feel that strongly against something, you would be lying to yourself if you then went in and like said like, oh, it's an honor and a privilege and tried to work for them. You know, like the directors that I shit on this podcast, I would feel like a bullshit artist if I was hired by them to be in their movie, even if I hadn't said that stuff on mic.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's sort of my rationalization of it.
But
I
then
don't know.
you're gonna get cast in like a Trevor movie.
I know.
and this is all
I'm
gonna be-
probably this is
Oh,
gonna
you're
bite me in the
so-
ass someday, but that's my
I
rationalization.
say, okay, cool. I say the same thing all the time. I
Right.
literally go like, one of these days this is going to come back to get me. But
The thing with that though is like Trevor knows that people don't like some of his movies.
Right.
If not,
Well,
does he?
I
heard
he does.
he knows
Sure
now. He knows
now. He knows.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
because of
I don't know
the
if he
one-
knew. I mean,
Not
yeah,
before
sure.
Star Wars.
He had to know
Yeah.
that Jurassic World was polarizing.
No.
He knew he did because he had defended things. Like people would ask him, "Why'd you do this?" So he would defend it. So I guess he knew a little bit.
Yeah.
But I
Yeah.
think he thought the Book of Henry was going to be a hit.
Do you know what I think though? And I feel like I'm always lying to myself, but I repeat this to myself all the time as like the justification for like stand, you know, by your opinions, you know, like speak openly on the podcast, share your thoughts is like, yeah, maybe it'll cost me a couple jobs, but someday it's going to get me the job that matters.
Yeah, that's
Like
true.
I imagine like
yeah.
Spielberg's going to call and be like, so first of all, I love Blank Check. And I'm like, there we go. I think that's what drives guys like you and I to
Yeah,
be
it's just
like,
that hope. It's just a little bit of
the
hope.
one
that-
person you actually respect is going
Yeah.
to be like, I'm hiring you because you said that movie was bad.
Spielberg calls. I mean, honestly, I would die. Be like, yo, what's up? What's up, Spielberg?
Guys, we gotta wrap up. I'm sorry to push it. It's
yeah,
just
no.
Ben's
No,
gotta,
you
Ben's gotta
make
go to the
perfect sense.
chiropractor.
Yeah. Ben,
Literally, what's
Ben, we care about
literally
what's happening to your
happening.
body.
No,
yeah, Ben's
thanks.
got to get his
James
back.
has to coach.
I do.
We're all very, very busy
Well, we
people.
have
I'm
so
going to
much-
go walk in the park.
Sports
Do nothing.
coach.
So-
We're probably going to get a bagel.
I might get a bag.
Yeah, let's take a walk. But thank you so much for being on the show. Everyone should listen to Black Man Can't Jump
Yep.
in Hollywood if they aren't already.
Please do.
What's wrong with you if you aren't listening?
Yeah.
Please remember to rate, review, subscribe. Thanks to Ange Fergudo for our social media, Lane Montgomery for our theme song, Pat Reynolds and Joe Bowen for our artwork. Ben looks like he has something to say.
Tune in next week for our episode on Justice League.
That's right.
Oh, next
That's
week will
right.
be
Next week
Justice
we're doing
League.
Justice League, so we can talk about it then.
We're
Wait,
recording these in
hey,
advance.
hey,
We'll do the
wait.
Bigelow one then.
Y'all doing Justice League?
Yeah.
They won't let me do it because like
Because
y'all-
Cyborg
can-
isn't-
Cyborg's not the lead.
Yeah, isn't like the lead
I mean,
character.
if y'all want like a Batman aficionado, I'm just saying.
Maybe we'll bring you back here in
I'm just
2
saying.
months from when we're recording
Yeah,
this
like,
episode.
you know,
that will
like-
then actually be released next week.
But
Try
yeah,
to get
good
a
call,
Batman
Ben.
tattoo.
Good call.
Yeah,
Setting
good
that
call.
out. Justice
And
League
happy
is next.
Thanksgiving.
And happy
Happy
Thanksgiving.
Thanksgiving.
Because this is coming out around
Wow.
Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Yeah,
Yeah, man.
we're looking far into the future on this one. Who knows what secrets will be held for us in that world? And as always, Hancock's a good movie.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I
I'm
stand
done.
by that. 100%
My headset is
Hancock's a
on.
good movie. Flowers are my game.
Doesn't make any sense.
Well, that's just, I mean, what?
You're a
Sims?
candy guy or a flower guy?
Candyman's my last name.
Okay.
That was the name they picked at Ellis Island. We were Candymanowski. And then my great great grandparents picked Candyman.
Right.
So
Don't hold my name against me. It's not like I fucking chose it.
No, it's great. But
I'm sorry, I get defensive
No, it's
because I
fine.
care about flowers and everyone thinks I'm coming with candy and I'm not. I'm Dan Candyman and I love flowers. I'm a pro for flowers.
Sure. Tell us more about yourself, Mr. Candyman.
But look, you ask me.
This is the
Hey, you're laughing to my face. I'm a professional
you're
here.
right, you're right.
I'm a pro flowerman.
You are.
My name's Dan Candyman. I demand to be taken seriously.
We have to do this again. This is insane.
Why are you laughing?
No.
To my face.
I gotta call it quits. This is nuts. This is not a good idea.
I just
Joe?
came up with our breakthrough character. We're gonna sell a Dan Candyman animated series. Okay, ready?
I'm ready.
Are we going to be professional about it this time?
Yeah,
Are we going to behave ourselves?
probably.
Because I came here to sell flowers, and I'm going to do a fucking ad read.
Stop swearing.
Okay, ready?
Yep.
Ding dong, ding dong, ding dong, ding dong.
Oh, can you get that, Ben? I actually
Ding-dong.
ordered delivery.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, sorry.
Hi-
Sorry.
Hi, how's it going?
Who can plant a
All that shit about being professional.
Okay, I'm going to be very serious this time.
Jesus.
Okay.
What a situation.
Ding dong, ding dong, ding dong, ding dong. Guys,
I see his face. He's just.
you should have started the first time we had something good going.
Okay. Oh, God. His face is just full of tears. So when I looked at him, I wasn't prepared for
Okay,
that.
don't look at Ben.
No, I'll look at him. It's fine.
Okay,
All right.
ready?
All right. Yep.
You chill out.
You weirdo.
Chill out.
God, no, killing me.
And you're telling me this isn't a good bit. Look at how, I mean, we're going to make fucking Candyman t-shirts.
Okay.